Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Crime and Sports early and ad-free right now. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
In the depths of an Atlanta forest, a clash between activists and authorities ends in tragedy. I'm Matthew Scher, and on my new podcast, We Came to the Forest, we expose the hidden truths behind a shootout that left one activist dead and countless lives forever changed. Binge all episodes of We Came to the Forest ad-free on Wondery Plus.
Hello, and welcome to Crime and Sports.
Yay!
Oh, yay indeed, Jimmie. Yay indeed. My name is James Pietragallo. I'm here with my co-host.
I am Jimmie Whisman.
Thank you, folks, so much for joining us this week again on Crime and Sports. We're so excited this week. We have another crazy episode. This is kind of our third kind of very well-known person in a row. And we are going back into the brain damage sports this week, which is always fun. Yeah. It's always an adventure. And this guy that we have is this is a saga. This is a tale and a saga. This isn't like, oh, he did this for 3 years and he got arrested twice and that's the end of it. This is, oh boy, buckle up. It's a tale. And
he's got issues.
He's got some fucking issues. He is a very similar, it's a wrestler and very similar to Jake the Snake Roberts in certain aspects, but then in certain other aspects, not at all. And he's mushroomed it into his own thing.
Excellent.
He's broken away from the cupcake mold and he is the fluffy top of the insane wrestler cupcake.
We did just find out Jake the Snake is going to be in Phoenix pretty quick.
He is.
In a month or so?
Because all wrestlers are stand-up comedians now for some reason.
He's got to tell some stories.
That's amazing.
I got some questions.
Imagine if you could do that. Imagine if you could go on stage and just answer some questions about your
Zero
life
jokes prepared.
And have nothing prepared. Jesus, could we do a small town murder live show? It's a lot of preparation. I'd love to just sit up there and go, whoa, how about you?
One would call that an undertaking.
Oh, very good, very good. Very good. Thank you guys this week for all of your iTunes reviews, all of your everything, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever the hell you do it. Please give us those reviews. They always help drive up the charts what they do. So it helps on the business end. Doesn't matter what you say. Just give us 5 stars. Say you're following instructions, following directions. We don't care. It's not for our ego. No. Just trying to go up the charts here.
Can't fix these egos.
Can't fix them. They're already broken. They're not there. So it's no kind words could save them now. So do that. Also go to shutupandgivememurder.com for all of your crime and sports and small town murder needs. All of your t-shirts and your mugs and your bath mats and your shower curtains and your t-shirts, like we said, and every damn thing you want there.
Plenty of t-shirts.
Lots. We got t-shirts, so many. We got it twice. We have all that good stuff. Also, tickets to live shows. You're going to need those. January 25th at the Neptune in Seattle.
Can't
Get
wait.
those. We're going to be there very soon. And February 21st, West Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, sun and fun.
Sun and fun. Get your shit together, Florida.
Yes.
You're an embarrassment already. Do not be a further embarrassment and not come out strong for us.
Come to this show, goddammit.
Please do that. Get those tickets now. Follow us on social media, too, while you're there. Do all that fun stuff. And if you want to be an extra large, amazing hero, you can do that also. If you want to be one of our producers who we talk about at the end of the show and love so dearly, you can do that very easily. You can follow the links right from our site that take you to patreon.com/crimeinsports, or you can go over to PayPal and use our email address, which is crimeinsports@gmail.com to make a one-time donation and do all of that. And wow, do we have a crazy episode.
I can't wait
to get all the house cleaning out of the way here. We've gotten it down to where I can get it in like a minute and a half. Yeah,
it's
not too shabby.
It's impressive.
We're getting good over here. We're getting good. We have more shit to talk about always with small town murder, but with crime and sports, we can buzz through it.
Dial it right in.
And we're diving into wrestling again tonight, which are always a fun episode, the wrestling episode. Have we had a bad wrestling episode?
No.
Chris Adams, Buck Zumhoff, Jimmy Snuka, Sonny, Jake the Snake. They're all crazy.
Not just the stories, but then actually I have a new appreciation for it.
It's
and
amazing.
The people that are involved with it.
It's incredible.
It's really amazing. And the people that do it and are like in the scenes of them, fucking amazing people.
It's stand-up comedy with violence. That's the way I've said it. In every episode, I always find how many parallels where we're like, see how it's just like stand-up? It is just like you're going around to city, doing the same fucking thing you did last night, pretending it's brand fucking new. It's the same exact thing. All of the weirdnesses, the behind this, everything is very similar except with brain damage. Is the only difference.
Athletic brain damage mixed with comedy. And a lot of the guys are very funny too.
They're funny.
They've got such great sense of humor.
Especially the older guys, you had to have a personality because they just hand you a microphone and be like, you got
say some shit.
You got 3 minutes to tell everybody that we're going to be at the auditorium on the 24th. So
fill it.
That's about 3 seconds worth. So the rest is on you. So you had to have a personality. Otherwise, nobody gave a shit. So a lot of those guys do. And this is a guy who does have a personality. It's Scott Hall.
Yes.
Everybody remembers Razor Ramon from the 90s, WWF. And
he was so handsome.
Then. Yeah, he's a big strapping son of a bitch, Scott Hall. And things have gone, he's done some roller coasters and it's gone pretty downhill. And then, oh boy, let's get right into this. Here. It's Scott Oliver Hall.
No.
As a middle Oliver.
He got beat with Oliver?
He got beat with Oliver, but Scott sounds like a big strapping dude. He just seems like out of place if he's not at a strip club in Florida. You know what I mean?
The dollhouse.
Like he should always be at a strip club in Florida because so many different things happen while he's at a strip club in Florida. You know how many times we're going to be visiting a strip club in Florida in this episode? It's amazing. It's so many times.
That's awesome.
It's so many times.
He's like a Motley Crue song.
Kind of, yeah. And a lot of these wrestlers were like that too. Like a lot of them were bouncers in strip clubs, and a lot of the times that they'd meet wrestlers either at the strip clubs or at the gym because they'd have to be all big and jacked up because they're working at a big strip club.
And they're working the same hours.
They're working, so they'd end up running into these wrestlers.
They're doing the workout hours of a stripper.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And a guy like Kevin Nash will say, like, he ran into guys at a gym and they were like, holy shit, look at the size of you. Like, fuck, you could probably be a wrestler. You're 7 feet tall, you weigh 300 pounds and you're jacked. You could probably wrestle, I would assume. So that's how a lot of them got into the business, is that way.
Or you could just run into Kevin Nash at a Blockbuster, because that's where you could see him here in Phoenix a lot.
Anywhere,
he was like
Blockbuster.
He was like the biggest fan of Blockbuster video.
I ran into him at an Outback Steakhouse, as a matter of fact, in 1998. Yeah, he's just like, let's just go to Outback. Fuck it. I don't care.
He loves businesses with a corporate office.
Yeah, just go to Outback. I got stock there. It's kind of how he talks too. Yeah. These guys have the most grating style of speak, Nash and Hall, of any human beings that have ever existed.
Too?
Oh yeah,
I don't remember him talking.
Hall, he talked a ton. Well, you may probably remember him talking as Razor Ramon in the Spanish accent. But,
that's probably it.
But later on in WCW and later on, he always talked. And when he's on the mic, it's different. But when he's in an interview, they both have this like, "Hey, bro, like I don't fucking know, man, like whatever," but like with this deep voice, like, "Hey, whatever, buddy." Like, it's so fucking irritating.
That's how Kevin Nash really talks, though.
Well, yeah, he talks. He's got the deepest voice ever.
It's very good.
You know what I mean? So, Hall too. Hall's voice is even deeper than Nash's.
Really?
Oh fuck yeah. Why
don't I remember him
doing his "Hey yo" and he was like, "Hey yo." It was this deep thing.
I can hear that.
So anyway,
or is that Rocky?
That's where it's all wrestling. No, okay, we'll get into it. Let's do this. He's born October 20th, 1958. He's born in Maryland.
That man's 60 fucking years old?
He's 60 years old.
Holy shit.
Yeah. He got started. He wasn't, nowadays, this wrestlers get started a lot of times when they're 20 years old. Back then, you couldn't be 20 years old and in wrestling unless you were like a legacy or something, like one of the Von Erichs or Kurt Hennig or one of those guys, because you'd look like a child fighting a man who looked like he could rip your head off your shoulders. Because all the guys back then were like, fucking barrel-chested, huge guys that just look tough. Guys that look like they'd kick your ass in a bar.
Iron workers.
They look like the toughest guy at the foundry. Or you look at Magnificent Morocco from back then. Like, he looked like he could kick your fucking ass. His head was the size of a watermelon. He's a big, 280-pound son of a bitch, and just looked like a tough guy. A lot of the guys like that.
And that's what it was too. The wrestlers then didn't look like they do today. They didn't look like The Rock.
They look like fashion models models.
Right.
Now, even The Rock, though, is a college football player with an athletic background. His family's in wrestling. Like
Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Nobody looked like that then.
No, and a lot of the guys now look like models. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
They're very pretty.
They're very chiseled.
They all have
They're cut.
We went through one day when we were doing a wrestling research, and Sarah, I've gotten Sarah into this also
Fantastic.
now. So we looked through, and she goes, "I've noticed something," and this is from someone who, she's not a wrestling connoisseur and wasn't into it when she was a kid.
Right.
She goes, "I looked through this roster, and everybody here." She goes, because it's got the old school guys on there. They're like under the Legends contracts, and it's got all the new guys. She goes, every new guy that's like current, they all look exactly the same.
Yeah.
She goes, they all have the same length of dark hair and beard, and they all look kind of greasy, and they all have the same look. And the only ones that stand out are the old school guys who if there's 8 pictures on a page, you go, there's Razor Ramon. He jumps off the screen. Whereas these guys now, you go, you could switch their pictures. Most people wouldn't fucking notice unless you were really into it. So it's one of those things. It's not a surprise that it's not quite as it's mainstream, but it's not quite as fanatical.
The other question too,
on the sides,
with that being done, is that aimed at trying to get a female audience to get the attractive male?
It's just when you hone something, basically. It started out as this kind of Wild West thing, and then McMahon has honed it, and then he went corporate in the early 2000s, and now it's a publicly traded company.
Right.
So all these guys, not only are they 20 and they look like models, they don't go out and party.
Right.
They go up to their rooms and play video games and shit like that now, and dick around on social media, and they're not...
He turned wrestling into a gated community.
Yeah, they're not the same guys. Right. They're not guys who somebody found bouncing at a strip club who's actually tough and who actually is like, dude, that guy might be able to kick your ass. These guys now, you look at them and they look all whatever, but you're like, I bet I could kick that guy's ass. Even though he looks like he weighs 220 and he's muscled, but I bet he's never been in a fucking fight in his life. Like, bottom line, I'll just fucking punch that guy in the nuts and the fucking fight's over. He won't know it's coming.
It's all just a manufactured appearance. It's all
a lot of them now. Not all of them too. That's the thing. A lot of them, and they work. The thing is too, they're amazing at what they do. They flip. They do crazy shit that's impressive, and it's just not the same, I guess, feel is what I'm getting at here. So anyway, Scott Hall grows up he's born in Maryland. His dad is in the Army, so he grows up everywhere. Okay. He moves at least once a year, he says.
An Army brat.
Army brat, and moves once a year, which I went to a shitload of different schools. I went to like fucking 5 elementary schools. It sucks moving around when you're a kid. That gives you a weird personality trait of like, I'm an observer because I like to, I show up.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I show up. I got to survey the landscape, and I want to fucking I like to take in, and I'm like, okay, these people are like that, and that gets to be a skill after a while. It's good for things like comedy, because you get to read a room, and you can quickly read a room when you show up, and things like wrestling. It's the same type of thing, and it's good for that type of personality, but probably not good for normal personality,
day-to-day life,
and sanity.
Right.
That's probably bad. So
you view everything as temporary anyway, no matter the behavior.
That's the thing. It's all temporary, and there's a lot of nice shit growing up. Like we moved all the time. I always had like shit packed just in case. I was a lot of anxiety as a kid.
Not a lot of bicycles in your life. It's a skateboard, something that can go in a box.
I can grab that,
arm.
pick it up, and hold it by the trucks and move, man. So his father. The way he describes it, his father, his mother, his grandparents, everybody in his family is a severe alcoholic. Is the way he describes it. Everybody's a drunk.
Wow.
And so genetically, he's fucked on alcoholism. And then just growing up, he's just right away, he never had a chance with the alcohol, it seems like. Anyway, predisposed big time to it. And he was drinking a little, and then it mushrooms out of control. He, I guess, was spent a lot of time in high school in Germany also. So that's the other thing too, that when you go around to different places, you figure out how to fit in and how to blend in and how to kind of get by. Yeah. So I could kind of see that, like I said, being a valuable skill for like a wrestler.
Or also for a criminal.
Or a criminal, say. Or it's con man. Or not that he's a con man, but there's a lot of different,
You want to be able to read your mark, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Is one way or another, you got to.
There you go. That's wrestling.
That's a wrestling word.
There you go. That's what I mean. That's wrestling. And it's the same thing with comedy. That's what I mean. You have to be able to read. All right, what do these fucking people want tonight? Look at them out there.
Yeah.
Ugh. What do they want
they
from
don't
me?
look like dick joke lovers.
I don't know.
They look like, maybe they're like fisting jokes.
Yeah,
maybe
I think they're into fisting
yeah.
jokes. Yeah, they're past the dick jokes, Jimmy. They're onto fisting. So he says that he was the man of the house at 15 in a bunch of interviews I saw. He says it from 15 on that he was, kind of the trying to earn money and just kind of be the man of the house and trying to act like a big guy and shit like that at that point. And like I said, difficult if you're moving around a lot to feel like you're grounded anywhere. He ends up going to some college in Maryland there. And at one point he was kind of hoping to do some academic things and kind of go back to school and further his academic life. And because he's not a dumb guy.
No.
You can hear him talk for 5 minutes and you go, oh, this guy's not stupid at all. Like he's together. He's just a fucking addict is his problem. Great. So he grows up and by 25 he is working as a bartender / bouncer. He's a big fucking guy.
Shit, yeah, he is.
He grows up to be 6'7".
Is he that big?
Yeah, he's a big guy. If you watch him, this is what's weird. You'd never notice that because during his wrestling career, for the part of it where he's very famous, he's always standing next to Kevin Nash, who's 7 feet tall.
Yeah,
he's a legit,
he's a monster.
College basketball player. He's a 7 foot tall guy. So standing next to him, Scott Hall always looked like he wasn't that big of a guy, but he's 6'7". He's a monster. He's bigger than Hulk Hogan.
Is he?
Put
really?
it that way. Yeah, he's bigger than Hulk Hogan.
And they tried to make him be a Spanish guy.
We'll get to that.
Sure.
No, he tried to.
It was his doing.
We'll get to that. Yeah. So, January of 1983. Okay. Now, picture this: 1983 at the Three Dollhouse, a strip club in Orlando.
Yeah.
The Dollhouse. The Dollhouse. Yeah. 3. I said the Dollhouse, like you brought up in Orlando. This is
it's the most popular fucking strip club in the planet.
Huge, big strip club. Yeah. He's working there.
Okay.
He's right in the middle of all this. Big porn stash. Yeah. I'm talking porn stash, curly mullet.
Fuck yeah.
Fucking jacked, 260 pounds of muscle, hairy chest. Handsome guy. Yeah. Back then when he was in his 20s, this motherfucker he's a handsome cat for like he looked like if Magnum PI had a brother that was like worked out and was like, shirtless on the beach. That's what he looked like. So
it looked like Ron Jeremy's like deep end of the gene pool.
I was gonna say genetically superior relative. Yeah, for the 80s, that's what 80s women liked. Yeah. You know what I mean? He was what 80s women were into. Okay. So he's working there. That strip club still exists too.
Yes, it does.
It's he was working there.
It's a chain. There's a bunch of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah. There's one in LA.
This feels like this is the original.
It probably is. There's one in Tampa too.
Oh well, that might be. That might be the nutsack of the strip club.
There might be one in Daytona. I'll bet you there's one in Daytona. I guarantee.
There's probably one in every city in Florida, I would assume. When I think of Florida, I just think of strip malls with strip clubs in them. That's all I think of when I think of Florida.
Ace Hardware, go over and have the buffet, throw $1 in a thong.
And, of course, the West Palm Beach Improv, which we'll be at on February 21st at Small Town Murder Live. So come to see that.
I'll bet you there's a dollhouse there.
There probably is. We're not going.
I'm going.
You can go if you want. Yeah. No, we're not going as a team. We'll put it that way. I'm going to stay up. I can't be bilked by fucking, can't do it. So he's working there. It's January 15th, 1983. There's a problem. He has a problem with a guy at the strip club. With alcohol, and it's late at night, and there's women around, and half of them don't have clothes on.
And Scott Hall gets his ass kicked?
People, what do you, I don't know. He's at this point, he's probably 250 of muscle still, and he hasn't got into wrestling at this point yet. He's just bouncing and bartending in the strip club.
He's about to.
But he's about to. Well, he's about to get into some, this is one of the fastest jump in and have a horrible crime happen right away. A horrible thing happen. This is huge. So, he's in a dispute. He says it was over a girl. That's all he remembers what it was. And he says everybody was drinking. Everybody's doing coke. It's fucking Florida in 1983. It's a mess. It's a mess.
You wanted to say disaster, but it kind of got caught. It could be a disease.
It could be a disease. It could be anything. So he says it was some sort of dispute. It wasn't based in, like, the guy didn't, break a glass in the strip club. This was a personal dispute over a girl that both guys were after or whatever. Yeah. So we don't know exactly what happened. So let's have it in their own words about this, because this is kind of a fucking this is crazy enough that we need to let him tell it. Okay. In their own words, quote, I remember what he was wearing, what I was wearing, what it smelled like. It's burnt in my brain. He smashed all the windshields out of my car. There's only one windshield in the car. I walked outside, and a security guard was there who watches the car. I said, where is he? I found him. I drilled him, and he went down. His shirt went up, and he was reaching for the gun, so I reached for it too. We wrestled around with the gun. I took it and shot him in the head. Point blank with a .45 caliber. Guy is dead, and I'm the reason, and this is bad.
What the fuck?
Yeah, he got in a scuffle outside a strip club. I guess this guy, I'm sure he had a Trans Am of some kind or a Camaro of something.
Tons of windshields.
Tons of windshields everywhere. A car has one windshield, but I get what he's saying. Probably broke out his T-tops too. Right. Apparently this guy smashed all the glass in his car, and he knew it was this guy, found him, and he's a fucking monster. Drilled him, and this guy, I'm sure fearing for his life, went for his gun, and Scott Hall at that point, fearing for his life too,
took it away.
Went for the gun as well. This is why carrying a gun can be dangerous sometimes. And it doesn't necessarily, because if you run into a giant guy who you're the person you need the gun for might take it away from you,
especially if
and
you're
then they're going to use
inebriated.
it. Yes,
have you been drinking?
That's the thing.
Never
Don't
have a gun
have
around.
your gun at a strip club. There's no need for tits and guns to ever be in the same room. I'm sorry, like exposed tits that are there for entertainment purposes.
And guns in waistbands.
Yeah, I'm not saying women shouldn't have guns, but if you go to watch ladies, dance, earn money, you shouldn't bring weaponry with you.
Why are you bringing a gun for that?
That's a joyous occasion that they're trying to make it.
One gun for that.
So Jesus. So he shot a guy with a .45 caliber point blank in the face.
Unbelievable.
So that is quite the beginning to the tale here. That's where do you go from there?
How do you have a life after that? That's a public eye life. He's an anomaly already.
The thing was, luckily for him, this was before he was famous at all. So it was just another strip club dispute in Florida, which probably 5 a night, I would assume, where people end up dead down there. But he's immediately arrested and charged with second-degree murder.
Right. And they changed his name from George Zimmerman.
Yes, it's complicated, and he grew a foot. Really worked on his physique. He was tired of getting pushed around. That's the thing. He said, damn it, that skinny kid shouldn't have been able to kick my ass. Start working out. So,
I'm assuming that the man was not black in a hoodie either.
Probably not. No, situation. I assume these were a bunch of drunken white guys in this Florida strip club. So he spends 3 days in jail out of this before it's dismissed because of insufficient evidence. Because they basically said it just looks like a fight that some self-defense. This is Florida,
right?
If there's a gun and so it goes off and it's like, whatever.
And shit like that.
You know how it goes. I don't know. They were in a scuffle. Things could have happened. Whatever. What's one less strip club patron? Fuck it. So that's Florida's state motto. What's one less strip club patron? Fuck it. It's right on their sign when you cross in from Georgia. So
the judge or prosecutor said he brought a what to wear? No, throw it out
of here. Throw it out.
Let the man free.
Where was it? At the strip club? Who cares? Jesus
the
Christ.
The dollhouse can't have that kind of publicity.
Get this out of here. Get this off the docket. No. So this is an interesting thing here. So now he's killed a man, and not even just like killed a man. This wasn't like got in a car accident and the guy died. This is a point blank gunshot. Yeah. He got brain on him.
Yeah.
This is like he went back inside with his fucking tank top, I'm sure, with brain on it. That's what happened.
There was the brain curl, like that spot, like you could
fucking
see the
skull fragments were on him. That's how close he was. Point blank, So I don't know.
With a 45.
With a 45.
James, that leaves a hell of a hole.
Oh, boy. Point blank?
That's everything.
Holy shit.
It goes in one side, takes everything out.
The back of his head would be gone. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So this is a rough way to start out. What little counseling you might need after that to talk about that? Just a little break of some kind. He says he just pushed it down and tried to forget about it. That was his way. He said, quote, I did probably the most unhealthy thing I could have done. I should have sought counseling right then, but I didn't know anything. I was a kid.
Yeah.
So that was it.
25?
He's 25. And he's 25, and he grew up in not a great family environment with a bunch of alcoholics moving all over the place.
Yeah.
Busy dad. Like, he didn't know I should go get help now. And, he's a macho environment, too.
Wow.
He probably just thought, oh, well, his friends were probably patting him on the back. Good for you. You got out of it. Good job. And he was like, yeah, it's great.
I mean, you think of any other way that can play out. The guy was reaching for it.
Yeah. I mean, he could have, okay, if we're talking from a legal standpoint, when the man broke all his quote, windshields out, he could have then called the police.
He could have.
And had the man arrested, and that would have been the end of it. But I understand if you see your car and all the shit punched out and you look over and there's the guy standing there, why? Let's cut out the middleman. I'm going to go fucking pound this guy in the hamburger. And then this guy escalates it to weaponry, which, you know what? If you break out a bunch of somebody's windows and don't flee the scene immediately and the guy's a giant monster,
it's on you.
You're asking to get your ass kicked at that point, and you have no right to pull out a fucking gun. I'm sorry. You deserve a cut. 3 shots right in the face he gets out of that. 3 good punches. Also,
the other part that I'm trying to look at it through is the prism and lens of a man that is huge. And I can't.
Monstrous.
I can't. I'll never fathom that.
No.
I'll never fathom any judgment made beyond here's all my windshields broken out.
Yeah. You don't know how to think of, I better take it easy because I'm a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that goes out the window once you see the gun, too.
Right.
But then it's like, I guess we're all even now at that point. It's so.
Yeah, that's the equalizer for sure.
Yeah, that's it.
That puts everybody the same height when there's one gun.
Everybody's the same size with a gun. Unless one of the bigger person takes it away from you, and then you have a problem. But even then, he took it away. I don't know if it was
wrestle.
It seems like he took it away and shot him, so it seems like he could have thrown it or done something else with it.
Put it in his own waistband.
Put it in his
kept punching the shit out of him.
Fucking working this guy over. I don't know.
You're winning the fight if he's
gonna
reaching
win
for
the
a
fight.
gun.
Yeah, you're winning.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he said he drilled him right in the face, and if this guy punched you in the face, you'd fall down. Yeah. He's a fucking giant person. So it all ended up working out semi-well in one regard because he ends up getting the charges dropped, and he ends up being with that woman for about 7 more years after that.
The woman that he was defending?
The woman that he was in a fight over, in a dispute over. So I guess once you barn door your competition's skull, then you can take the woman and nobody is... I guess that's the end of the dispute.
I mean, if a woman beat the hell out of somebody and took the gun from them and shot them in my honor at the same time as her windshields,
I think it was mainly in the honor of the windshields.
Yeah, I think.
I don't think it had. That seemed to be his main beef.
I might marry her too.
Was his windshield. He didn't marry her. They just stayed together.
All right.
But at this point, he gets out of Orlando. Apparently, he moves to Tampa. He goes to the gym a lot because, like I said, he's a big jacked up guy. And, this strip club bouncer bartender culture is you have to be this jacked up guy that can walk around with no shirt on with your porn stash kicking. Very odd time in our history that this came from.
It's still today.
But this was especially back then. They had coke all in their porn stash at that point. Nobody cared. You didn't even tell someone you got some shit. It was just like, yeah, cool. Got any more, bro?
Or somebody would be like, can I get a lick of your beer?
Yeah, get a lick of your stash.
I'll lick that for you.
That's the thing of the 80s that people don't remember is people just walking up to other people saying, can I lick your stash, man? And people are like, yeah, sure.
If you don't mind, I'd appreciate it. Gonna go see my mom after this.
Yeah, so please clean me up. They groom each other like monkeys. So he moves to Tampa. He's going to the gym, and he wants to be a wrestler at this point. Right? Okay, we've talked about this before. If you've listened to Crime and Sports at all, wrestling was regional, and in the 80s was the peak of all of these regions, the early 80s, like 83 we're talking about. This is when nothing had shut down yet. Vince McMahon was just taking over. He was just stealing everybody's talent. Hogan was going to debut in 84 for him, and then we go down that road and things start to close and whatever. This is pre that. This is when everything is cooking. This is kind of the most popular wrestling has ever been. And I honestly think, and I've heard arguments in this favor too, that it was more popular then than it was in the 90s when it was getting 9 ratings on or 8 ratings on TV, because back then it wasn't just 2 companies that had weekly shows. This was every region of the country. I mean, look at the South. They had Florida, they had Georgia, they had Alabama, had their own territory, Tennessee, Louisiana. Every one of these places had their own thing, and every night they were running at least one, if not two shows, all of these people, and they were all selling well all over the country. Yeah. So it was like everybody it was a big, very popular thing. So for him, this makes sense that, you would be like, shit, I'm a big, giant, jacked up guy. Right. I look at Hulk Hogan and I go, I'm that size. Right. He's bigger. He's on roids. He's got weight on me, but fuck, I could be that big, and why not? I'm as athletic as that guy, and he's bald as fuck. I mean, let's be realistic here. And that's what I've heard a lot of wrestlers that are bigger back in the day. They'd say they'd see Hogan, see what he could do, and go, I could do that. Yeah. That's Kevin Nash said he saw that. He said, he said, I went to an event in Detroit, Kevin Nash did, and he said, I saw Hogan, and I said, I was looking at the top of his head, and I go, he's fucking short. Yeah. And then I saw what he could do, and he goes, I could fucking do that. I could do way better than that. I was a college athlete. This guy is, he's stumbling around in there. He's like, I could fucking do that. It's
hilarious that with his hairline, he had the audacity to call himself Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Well, it was when he was a bad guy, so it kind of made
Hollywood,
sense.
With that hairline.
Well,
all right.
Hollywood after all his fucking failures at the box office. Never mind his hairline. How about Mr. Nanny? Let's talk about that, Hulkster. Let's talk about Suburban Commando before we talk about your goddamn... Let's talk about Santa with muscles before we decide to talk about hairlines.
Suburban Commando was hysterical.
It was hysterical.
That was a stupid, dumb movie.
Christopher Lloyd's I was in Back to the Future 4 fucking years ago. Do you understand that?
What is this?
What happened to me? You're not Michael J. Fox. You have no talent, and you're holding that drink very steady. Right. So, anyway... He wants to be a wrestler here. He says that he contemplated suicide at this time. He was going through a very dark period of depression, and he's drinking a lot too. And after the shooting, he's just had some weird shit going on. He never got any help for it. He says that he was raised as a Catholic, though, and he was very Catholic at the time, and he didn't want to go to hell. He said that he didn't want, quote, to go to hell, and that's where I thought suicide victims went, and I was afraid of hell.
What about the guys that kill people?
Yeah, no, they're fine. Well, in the eyes of the law, Jimmy, in the eyes of the state of Florida, that was legit, which I think is the same as God, right?
Same.
I think God usually refers to the state of Florida to figure out how to rule on things.
He's their Supreme Court, so they only go to him if they can't figure it out.
Absolutely. So he ran into wrestlers at the gyms, was the plan, and from what I understand and from what I've heard him say before, first people he ran into was Mike Rotundo and Barry Windham, who were a tag team at the time, and Barry Windham, they went their separate ways, but Barry Windham was Jesus Christ, he was a huge star in the mid-'80s. You probably don't remember him. No. He's a tall at the time in the 80s, he was a thin blonde guy. Yeah. His father was Blackjack Mulligan, who was a big giant star, big giant cowboy guy. And so anyway, he found those two guys. And Mike Rotundo was like IRS, and the guy with the tie and like suspenders wrestling. Like, why is that guy in a suit?
Right.
That guy. Okay. That's the other guy. So he found him. This was then, and they found him and kind of said, hey, how do I be a wrestler type of thing? And Florida had their own territory down there, which was so
many of them down there.
So many. This was Championship Wrestling from Florida, which was Eddie Graham's promotion. Mm-hmm. Eddie Graham, this is a weird story too. Eddie Graham, who ran this promotion, who was very successful with it, and then things went not so successful, and he lost money in a real estate deal, and had problems with a woman, and ended up killing himself.
Oh wow!
And then later on, down the line, this was in the last 5 years, his son Mike Graham also shot himself.
Oh no!
And then Mike Graham's son also shot himself.
What is going on with the Grahams?
So 3 generations of suicides in the Grahams. They're like the Von Erichs of the East Coast. The Von Erichs had all those suicides and deaths as well. But yeah, it turned into a mess. Yeah. But in 1984, things were going great. Yeah. Everybody was alive.
Nobody feeling bad.
Nobody feeling bad. Business was good. All right. Everything's all right. You know what I mean? Everybody's swinging.
Terrible story, James.
There's not a lot of happy endings.
Story.
When you start any wrestling story,
I quote James, "This is a good story."
I mean, for our purposes. For what we do, it's interesting anyway. I don't know if it's good so much as it's
this
interesting.
This is a good story. I think that's what you said. This is a good story.
This is a good story. 3 generations of suicides. Isn't this good? Family name is wiped out. Good, right? Gone. Fucking terrible.
Fantastic.
But most wrestling stories end with that. And there's not a lot of huge there's success stories, but there's not so many of them end poorly.
Yeah.
The movie The Wrestler is very apt for too many people.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
The happy endings and success stories are vastly outnumbered.
They're outnumbered a lot. Like it's same with it's like comedy. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
You start out with you start out with a bunch of guys doing comedy, and by 10 years in, a few of them are crazy. Yeah. They've lost their fucking minds.
Posting weird shit.
Yeah, they have that going on. People are doing menial jobs, still hanging on to this dream of comedy, even though they suck at it and they're 45 years old. Right. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
They get into alcohol. It's a mess.
Yeah.
So they don't usually not see the thing about comedy though. They don't get too much into drugs because they can't afford them.
Right.
That's the only difference. Later they get into drugs, but booze is free at the club. That's the problem there.
Well, at least two.
Yeah, at least
maximum two.
Yeah. Well, unless unless you're half decent, and then you can get as much as you want.
You get 2 beers and a slice of pizza.
Oh, if you're at an open one.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking a real club.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that
if you're
place,
any decent, they'll feed you till you fall down the stairs. Feed you booze. They're great.
They'll feed you booze until your headliner says, no more for that guy.
No more for that guy. He's terrible.
Did you hear how he brought me up?
Jesus Christ. He mispronounced my name. So he starts in 1984 in championship wrestling from Florida, and he is a big, impressive looking son of a bitch in the 80s. Yeah. In the 80s, a lot of the guys, this was between eras. So you had the guys like Hogan that were big and jacked up and muscled. You had a few guys like that. And then you had your holdovers from the older days of more of the, they had a beer belly. Yeah. They had a belly, big barrel chested, tough guy with a belly and like skinnier legs and all that kind of shit. And then guys like Scott Hall came in and was like, he's a physical fucking specimen compared to these guys. He was in doing some stuff with Dusty Rhodes when he first came in. So right away they made him an important guy, like a big shot. And that's with comedy. It's like if you're if you're young, it's the same thing. Have 2 jokes. Yeah, if you're young and have 2 jokes, and they feel like people are attracted to that in some way, they'll put you on. It's the same way here in wrestling. Like they always talk about it, these guys need experience, they need to work, and that is true unless they're 6'7" and look like a fucking and a big handsome strapping dude. Right. Then they'll figure it out as they go. Lex Luger, they did the same thing. He barely got trained. They were like, look at this fucking guy, get him in the ring. He never knew what he was doing because he never had the chance to learn. That's essentially their talent, though, is being big and handsome. Yeah. And it's the same thing as comedians when you throw that into them in that situation. They never learn because they're always in this. They never get a chance to hone anything. Develop a personality. Figure out how to be. Yeah, because you're always under pressure to perform. Right. You can't be under pressure to produce and come up with things. Right. And I feel like that's kind of you're constantly being used because you fit a fucking mold that they need at this moment. Exactly. Because that's what's trending, James. And you guys can decide whether we're talking about comedy or wrestling because it's the same on both ends. I was just going to say which one are you talking about, and it doesn't matter. Nope. So he ends up also he does some other shit here. I know he ends up in Missouri at some point in central states for a little bit here. He's at one point here he's formed Jesus Christ. He's a tag team with a guy named Danny Spivey, who's a big tough son of a bitch too. He's another guy's like 6'7", and they make them their tag team name is American Starship. Okay, and this is fucking amazing. Scott Hall's name is Starship Coyote. No. Starship Coyote. What in the fuck does that even mean? I have no idea. And Danny Spivey was Starship Eagle. Eesh. So luckily for him, that's the worst name he's ever going to get in wrestling, and he gets it out of the way right out of the bat there. American Starship? American Starship, which is, I don't know if they're going for like Jefferson Starship or something. And then he chose a Spanish animal. They didn't. He just broke in. They said, this is what you are. Yeah. That he didn't have any say in this shit when he came in. They're not going to take some guy who just started and say, who would you like to be? They're like, we need this. We're going to team you with that big giant guy. This is who you are. Get out there and pose. Starship Eagle? American Star. He's Starship Coyote. Okay. Spivey's Eagle. Okay. So, this is don't fuck it up. Already. Don't fuck it up. Yeah. I know he's in Missouri because I've heard the story at one point of Marty Jannetty, the second rocker there, Shawn Michaels' old tag team partner, who we'll most certainly have an episode about. He is amazing. Well, at one point, Scott Hall hears, I guess guys would charge shit to each other's rooms. That's a little joke that they play on each other. They'll be like, oh yeah, and charge it to this guy. And to a certain degree, it's funny, and then you'll get the guy back and they fuck with each other. Apparently, somebody did this to Scott Hall pretty severely.
Okay.
Ran up a bunch of shit on his room bill, and somebody told Scott that it was Marty Jannetty that did it. So Marty Jannetty was asleep in the locker room.
Oh no.
And he said he awoke to being pummeled by Scott Hall. So imagine Jannetty's not a big guy. He's maybe 6 foot tall, probably 230 pounds. And then you have this giant son of a bitch. Imagine waking up to a 6'7", 260 pound man pummeling the fuck out of you.
For something you didn't do?
Didn't do it at all.
No.
He's to this day, he's like, it wasn't me that did. I don't know why the fuck he did it.
Oh, Jesus.
And I guess so, yeah, this was a big deal. So he fucked up Jannetty good, lumped them all up, and he was all destroyed.
Whoever did that's got to look at Jannetty's face and go, that was supposed to be me.
But they look at that and laugh, and they go, now that's a double rip. I got him and him. This is great. That was what they used to do. That's what they used to do. They used to do terrible shit and then insinuate that this guy did it. So then you not only got this guy, but then he goes and gets that guy, and then he's pissed at him, and it's this giant thing, and you're not even involved in it, and you caused it.
Lumped up, though.
That's how they used to do it. Because they're bored. They're going from town to town with the same guys every fucking night. They're fucking bored. It's a big group of jacked up dudes who are bored and drunk and everything else.
There's a point where a joke goes too far, though, and it's when somebody is being assaulted.
Oh, well, this happened all the time.
Oh, Jesus.
The whole thing I told you about, I think it was a Jake the Snake episode where we talked about Jacques Rougeau and the Dynamite Kid and all of that shit. That was
remember.
Jacques Rougeau, very, very quickly,
pants?
wrestling
was it the
fans.
Pants thing?
They cut the pants up, and they were told that it was the British Bulldogs, the Rougeaus were, so they got mad and told Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon got pissed, told the Bulldogs. Bulldogs came over, said, why'd you fucking tell on me? And it turns out that they didn't even tell on him. It was some mistake of something. And so.
Did somebody get lumped up?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, there was jobs lost, injuries. Dynamite Kid came up while they were playing cards and smacked Jacques Rougeau in the ear off his fucking chair and wanted to fight him right there. Ends up, he smacked him around a little bit. So Jacques Rougeau got pissed off and basically trained for a month to knock this guy out. Talked to his dad. His dad told him to get a roll of quarters from the bank. Literally.
What the fuck?
Caught Dynamite Kid coming out of the cafeteria at a TV taping and just didn't say shit and just pounded him with a roll of quarters in his hand, knocked his fucking teeth out, knocked him down, bloodied him up, and then because Dynamite Kid, of course, wanted to kill him afterwards, the Bulldogs ended up leaving WWF in the 80s because of this whole thing, all starting with a rib. That was a stupid joke that somebody, just to fuck with somebody's pants, to fuck with him. It escalated into this big thing with serious injuries and huge dental bills and people literally being fired and going off to different places. It's crazy.
I want to know how much money was charged to Scott Hall's room.
Who knows?
You know what I mean?
In the 80s in Missouri, it could have been $40, and they would have been like, I only made $25 These guys at that point were making $50 a night.
That's where I'm at.
And if you were in Central States, that was a shit. I think it was Central States. That was a shit promotion.
That's the equivalent of at the comedy club, somebody taking your validated tag and leaving their unvalidated parking.
Hey, that's $3, asshole.
Right, and now you've got to go pay for that.
For the privilege.
For the amount that I've been paid to be here tonight. Yeah. And now I'm going to have to put more money out to put in this fucking parking attendant.
That's the truth. So after that, he goes to AWA, and this is kind of his big break. AWA we talked about a lot. AWA is Buck Zumhoff's main promotion with old Vern Gagne there and that whole shit. So listen to the Buck Zumhoff episode if you want a full. It's hilarious.
Also, don't eat before.
Don't eat before it. But our description of the AWA is pretty goddamn good. See Wrestle Rock Rumble for.
Do see that.
And we'll talk more about this because Scott Hall is in.
Oh, is he in that?
He's in the video for the Wrestle Rock Rumble. So,
holy shit.
Oh yes, he is, boy. So he comes in. At first, they called him Magnum Scott Hall.
Yeah.
There was this thing thing of calling people Magnum because of Magnum PI.
You can't do that to
They
this
did.
guy.
Well, there was Magnum TA in NWA, who was Terry Allen, this guy, Magnum TA, who was a handsome guy with a mustache. Right. So Magnum TA, he ended up getting into a horrible car accident, never wrestling again in 86 when he was like at the peak of his popularity.
Horrible.
Very Florida of him.
Yeah.
And at this point here, it's Magnum Scott Hall, because he's a big strapping dude with a mustache.
But you can't name a guy that's shot somebody in the fucking head after a sidearm.
He said,
can't
"Hey,
do that."
Well, they ended up changing it later on, and this is his first. This is a really creative nickname. First, I mean, Starship Coyote. That's pretty creative, but this is much better. He goes as Big Scott Hall for a
Perfect.
while. Big.
That's better.
That's his nickname.
Believe it or not, better than Magnum.
It's Big Scott Hall.
I like that.
Yeah.
If the choices are Magnum or Big Scott Hall, I'm going with
Scott,
Big.
especially because other people were Magnum.
Right.
I think it was like a race to have Magnums. And they were like, they named that guy Magnum first? Shit. All right. So they looked at him. This was the year after Hulk Hogan left. Mm-hmm. Hulk Hogan left a year and a half. Hulk Hogan left in late 83. So they look at him and they go, "Oh, this could be Hulk Hogan."
Yeah.
They go, "Holy shit, look at him. Yeah. He's the same size as Hulk Hogan. He's younger than Hulk Hogan. Full head of hair, more handsome than Hulk Hogan, mustache, muscles, more muscular than Hulk Hogan even."
Fuck yeah,
because at the time, he was roided out and jacked and but ripped. Now, Hogan was never like as ripped as him.
His waist was tiny.
Yeah, Scott Hall had he was a big so they made him a good guy, and they were like, he could be it. But when you have 2 years experience, and Hogan has a charisma. Right. Whatever you think about Hogan, he's a bad actor, all that shit. He's got a certain charisma in wrestling that nobody else really has. At the time anyway, no one else really had besides maybe Dusty Rhodes or something. But Dusty Rhodes didn't look like Hulk Hogan, so
there really wasn't anybody.
No, that's why he was so popular. Yeah. He looked like that, and he looked like a He-Man action figure. Hulk Hogan.
Was he the one essentially that really made them craft the what wrestling became into like 88, 89? Because everybody was so specific. You know what I mean? Like Junkyard Dog looked a specific way.
Vince McMahon literally took everybody and was like, "Okay, I need a Mexican. Yep. I need a black guy. Yep. I need an Iranian. I need a Russian." Yep. Like, look at the Rock and Wrestling cartoon from the 80s.
That's what I was looking at.
It was ethnic groups. They had Piper in the front, and they had Nikolai Volkov, the Russian, and they had Iron Sheik, and they had all the bad guys. Yeah. And then on the other side, they had a black guy. They had Tito Santana. They had a black guy, Junkyard Dog. Yep. Big blonde guy in the front, Hulk Hogan. Andre the Giant, who's a giant. Jimmy Snuka they would have in there as the island guy. That's what they wanted. They wanted cartoon characters. Yeah. And it stood out. They wanted guys where if you looked at a wrestling figure, you'd go, "Holy shit,
I know exactly who that is."
Exactly who that is. Yep. He's distinctive. His colors are distinctive. His outfit, his head, his look, his voice, everything's distinctive.
I love Junkyard Dog.
And they've got Junkyard Dog.
He was fucking awesome.
He was great, Junkyard Dog, and then he got fat and lazy. He wasn't great anymore.
Like an old dog.
Yeah, like an old dog. You can tell Junkyard Dog. Just look at the top of his head, and however big his bald spot is, the bigger it is, the worse he is. Because he was really good, and then it started getting a little thin on top, and he started getting a little heavier and a little lazier and a little less fucking spry in the ring. And then the more he just lost that hair and that bald spot, the worse he got and the worse he got, till finally he just had to shave his head, and he had a big gut hanging over, and
horrible.
Wasn't good.
That's basically the same with every guy ever in history, of no matter what he does.
Yeah.
The bigger the bald spot, the worse he is at what he does.
Yeah, mainly unless like stocks maybe or something like that. But athletically,
reading though,
anything athletically, your bald spot's going to be directly correlating to your lack of athleticism, I would say. So so this is now Vern Gagne's trying to push him ahead here. His mustache even got bigger.
Oh, really?
Just to be like, well, Hogan has that handlebar. I feel like that's what they were doing. I have no idea. But they gave him the same, just be a big guy, don't go off your feet. They end up putting him as a tag team partner with Kurt Hennig, who was Mr. Perfect later on, who's one of my all-time top 3 favorite guys. It's Hennig and Piper, and then I'm not sure who is the third. I haven't decided
Junkyard
yet.
Dog.
No, not Junkyard Dog. But anyway, Kurt Hennig
But
here.
I liked him because nobody else was in. You know what I mean? Like you find the one. I always gravitated to the one that everybody else didn't like. Like that was my guy.
Yeah,
and that
was Piper when I first started watching. Was that everybody hated Piper? Like, this guy's great.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I had a revelation with wrestling when I figured out that bad guys were doing that shit on purpose, and I went, "Oh my god, that's amazing! That is fucking genius,
brilliant."
It was actually the Honky Tonk Man that gave me that realization because he was such an asshole.
Yeah.
And he was like, if you don't know, he was basically like an Elvis impersonator type of character. But he was so good at being a dick that and then I realized what he was doing, and I was like, he's fucking brilliant.
Genius.
He would come out and he'd have his terrible theme song that he sang, and he'd come out and it was singing, and he would come out and he'd sing a little bit and like fucking act like he was playing guitar, and he would say, "Thank you, folks," and if he's getting booed out of the building, and he'd go, "You folks are so wonderful. Thank you, folks, so much, and just for being such a wonderful audience. One more time with that song. Let's go, everybody. Come on." And he'd start, and they'd fucking, "Oh, you motherfucker," and people throw things at him. And then I went, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
What an asshole. That's great.
Second verse, same as the first.
He's like, "Start that song again. Let's one more time for these beautiful people. Thank you folks so much. You just wonderful fans." And they're throwing things at him. He's like, "I really appreciate all the love and respect you folks are giving me."
I feel Dennis Rodman was definitely a wrestling fan, right?
Yeah, Dennis Rodman. He was in wrestling.
Right.
We'll talk about that.
But I mean, he had to be a huge wrestling fan early.
Oh yeah.
Because
you could tell.
He essentially just translated that to the NBA.
Yeah,
that's what he was.
There's so many.
That's why I loved him.
Muhammad Ali was a giant wrestling fan.
Was he really?
Muhammad Ali said that he got his personality from Gorgeous George, from Classy Freddie Blassie, who was in the WWF at this point, from all the wrestling guys. He said he would see how they would get people to come. He figured out that, they talk and do interviews, and that's how they get people to come to the shows.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, if I do that.
Fuck,
it's a legit.
I'm winning.
Yeah. And then I talk too. They're going to fucking come. And he was right. Yeah. That's why he made himself the most popular character ever. But
it's true.
He took on wrestling shit that he liked because he grew up in, in that area. There was a lot of wrestling in
Kentucky.
the South. Louisville, that was a big, it's a huge wrestling area there. There's a ton of wrestling. So, anyway, at that point here, he tag teams with Curt Hennig. Jesus Christ. They win the World Tag Team Championships.
Wow.
1986. And we won't go over all the belts that this guy wins because there's like 700,000 titles. We're not going to say he won the tag team title again. This is not about that.
They are numerous.
They're numerous. He's good.
Yeah.
We'll just say that. They beat Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Steve Regal, who not the English Steve Regal for wrestling fans, the shitty little blonde dirtbag looking Steve Regal, who used to fight Buck Zumhoff all the time in the AWA. Somehow they let those guys be tag team champions.
Really?
Not only that, those guys beat the Road Warriors to get the tag team titles, and then Scott Hall and Curt Hennig beat him. After that, they end up losing the titles to Playboy Buddy Rose and Pretty Boy Doug Summers, which is that they look like a couple of child molesters who hang out at a sleazy dive bar. But they used to fight the Midnight Rockers at the time, and it used to be on ESPN after school when I was very little, and I used to watch that shit every fucking day. I was enthralled. This is the time period when I was watching this shit on ESPN every day, AWA wrestling, and being into it.
You know what's amazing is that you can spit out the phrase, "they look like a couple of child molesters," and everybody listening goes, "I know what that guy looks like."
I know what that guy looks like. If you saw,
I didn't have to Google that.
If you Google Doug Summers, Google Pretty Boy Doug Summers, and take a look at that guy and tell me that guy doesn't look like he's got children in his basement right now. Right fucking now. Right. And Buddy Rose is actually a great wrestler, and he's just got really fat and out of shape, and he turned it into a comedy thing. But
it is so hilarious that you know what that guy looks like. He looks like a weenie, a complete dickhead.
Yeah, well, he looks like Summers looks like a dirtbag. Yeah. He looks like a guy that got kicked out of the strip club.
Oh,
He's
really?
not even allowed to stay because he creeped a few of the girls out. Like, that's what he looks like. So they participate in Wrestle Rock 86, like we've talked about. Do yourself a favor if you're a new listener, just Google Wrestle Rock Rumble. Watch the video and thank us fucking later, because it is wrestlers in 1986 from the whitest promotion in the world, Minneapolis-based, fucking ran by an old man, Vern Gagne, rapping, and it's amazing. And him and Curt Hennig have this little segment where they rap, and then girls push them in a pool.
That's them. I remember
they get
that.
shoved in the pool, and like they do like big
splash.
Yeah, giant. Yeah, that's
big dramatic.
Yeah.
There's no way a woman could push a man big.
No.
As dainty as those girls are.
No, they were Playboy models, these girls, literally. And then Scott Hall comes out 280 of muscle with all his hair all wet and his mustache dripping fucking pool water.
And she got him off fucking center of gravity.
You know it. You fucking know it. Jesus Christ. So eventually he and Kurt Hennig aren't tag team partners anymore. They start to they break them up because Kurt Hennig ends up feuding with the champ at the time, who's Nick Bockwinkel, and ends up becoming the champ a little bit later on, and had a great match on New Year's Eve. Not on New Year's Eve, but they aired it on New Year's Eve of '86. That was fucking awesome. And when I was a little kid, I had nothing else to do because it was New Year's Eve, and I was 7, so I watched it, and I fucking loved it. And I loved every minute of it. It was great. So anyway, he ends up kind of hanging around the AWA for a while. Eventually ends up in the NWA, which by this time had become Ted Turner had bought them in late '88. So this is it was basically Jim Crockett Promotions, but not anymore because WCW, Ted Turner had bought it, and it was becoming WCW at that point. So
completely unrelated to Straight Outta Compton.
Completely unrelated. Yes, this is an older NWA that does not feature angry young black men rapping very well
against the police.
No, not
they
at
actually,
all.
that's the difference. Is that NWA rapped very well.
Yeah, they were good at it.
These guys don't.
Terrible. Yeah. I can't imagine some of these guys rapping here. So he goes there, and they call him Scott Hall now when they bring him in this time, and they make him a cowboy.
Yeah.
And it is fucking ridiculous. He's got like this blonde frost to his hair, and it's the late 80s, and he's kind of got like a fluffy mullet. It's like a big curly one, and he's got a big old fucking push broom, and he's big and jacked up, and there's this one interview of him, he's got a cowboy hat on and like a vest, and you're just like, oh, dude.
No.
Don't be a cowboy. Shockingly, this doesn't work very well, and yeah, it's really, 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 really weird, but strangely enough, it doesn't work out too well. He ends up, they end up just, making him a fucking jobber after a while, and he loses a whole bunch, and ends up kind of going underground for a little bit here. He leaves WCW, and maybe it's because he met another woman.
Oh.
And he meets a woman, and he ends up getting married in February of 1990.
Great.
He marries a woman named Dana Burgios at the time. Dana, she's a long suffering
Italian girl.
She'll be hanging out for Burgios. I'm not sure if she's Italian.
That
sounds Greek.
Dana
maybe.
Burgios sounds super Italian to me.
Burgios?
Yeah.
How many Gioses are there in
Genovese? There's all kinds
a vowel
of weird...
at the end. There's an S on the end of this. I'm thinking Greek.
Maybe.
Possibly. There's a U, an I-O, and an S. That's a lot of, that's at the end. That sounds Greek.
I hear fucking Italian.
Hungarian, I don't know. Well, your ears are fucked up. If it was Burgioso, I'd say yes. Right.
All right. That goes a little better.
It's like maybe it was shortened. Maybe she is.
Maybe, yeah.
That's a possibility.
Maybe it was Burgiosiani.
But it could have been Burgiosiolioso for all I fucking know. Who knows?
It sounds Italian to me.
Dean Martinelli? No, you're Dean Martin, pal. Yeah, it's going to sell better. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to let the kids buy those Filthy Guineas albums. So he marries her. This is when he first goes down to Puerto Rico and wrestles down there for a while for WWC. He'll go back and forth down there whenever he's unemployed or, whenever he's fucked up and been fired from somewhere or moving on or in between. He goes down there May 31st, 1991, he has a son.
Oh, boy.
They have a son. Name?
Yeah.
Cody.
Yeah. All right.
Not a junior. Not a junior at all.
Okay.
After that, he's got to make some dough here. Yeah. And he says at this point, he's got another run in him, basically. The cowboy thing really fucked him up. He didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So that made him upset and kind of ruined his whole outlook of the business, as I don't blame him.
You're on his side right now.
That sounds terrible. Yeah. That was what they used to do to guys back then when they didn't know what to do with him. They were like, he's a cowboy. Put a hat on him. It's like, well, he's not a cowboy, though. Like, they used to do that shit all the time. The Irwins, they made them the Long Riders, and they were like Minnesota hockey players. They made them cowboys. It's like, why are you making them cowboys?
Sounds like their budget's empty. You know,
I guess a hat's a cheap costume.
Right, that's all it is.
But the guys had to get their own costumes back then.
You
So
can buy one at a truck stop for $4.
But they had a creative team. You don't understand? They had a like the WCW back then. They had a whole round table of bookers that they would do. And they said that one guy, the big, giant, handsome, jacked up guy, I'm just making him a cowboy. And then everyone went, yeah, cowboy. That's going to work.
Fuck yeah.
How many good cowboy gimmicks have there been since 1982?
Good?
Like that were popular.
Oh, okay.
Like, I can't think of a bunch of them. There's not a whole lot of them.
I thought you were leaning on that good part.
No, not the good part. They're all terrible. They're all terrible. They're all like Cowboy Bob Orton was okay when he was with Piper in the 80s. He was cool. And Blackjack Mulligan was fine in the 70s. And, and Blackjack Lanza, those guys.
There are a lot of comedians today that are running on this whole premise of the cowboy outfit is a stupid, dated thing. I don't mind it. If you're going to embrace it, go ahead. That's fine.
It's a Halloween costume, though. It's pretty silly. Let's be realistic here. I've said this when I first started comedy. It was one of my first jokes. Is they put their big Intercontinental title belt buckle on, and they go to work like that. Like that's I can't dress up like Batman and go to work just on a Wednesday. How you doing? No, this is just how I dress now.
This is what I do.
No, you work in an office. You're not a cowboy. Sorry.
It's fine, is my point.
I suppose if you want to look silly.
I mean, you could wear a shirt over it, and nobody fucking sees it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the hat that's my point, is that hat makes such a statement.
It's like huge. It's a giant hat.
It screams, talk to me.
It doesn't just hug your head. It goes out wide.
It's so big.
Yeah.
Unless you work, like I work outside, and I used to wear them because then you've
for
got
actual
shade.
sunshade. Yeah, for actual purpose. It's different. Yeah.
Right. It's purpose built.
You can tell because when you see landscapers, like a bunch of Mexican dudes, they're wearing like floppy old lady hats.
Right.
They're wearing literally like hats they got out of the old lady section.
Yes.
And they're like, that's going to block my shit from the sun.
Yeah.
There we go. That's what
my
they put
shoulders
on.
And everything.
Beautiful. Look at that whole. I got a big fucking glaucoma fucking
net
glaucoma hood over here. So. This time when he returns, it's a little bit different. This time, this is pretty slick here. He turns into, Diamond Dallas Page gets a hold of him here. Now, Diamond Dallas Page, who we talked about a lot, he's the guy who took Jake the Snake Roberts in and did the DDP yoga, which is big now, and basically brought Jake the Snake Roberts from being a cripple who couldn't move to being able to do things and go do live shows and tour the country and shit like that.
Thanks a lot, DDP.
Thanks, DDP. So DDP is one of these guys. Everybody likes DDP. Yeah. He helps everybody out. So many stories, if you watch shoot interviews with wrestlers, start with, I called DDP up and he talked to this guy for me. DDP called me and said he could do this for me. Yeah. The guy, I don't know how the hell he had time to do his own thing because he was always helping everybody and doing shit.
So one of those switchboard microphones.
Yeah, he's got a Bobby Brown My Prerogative fucking headset on and he's just walking around like that.
Making phone calls.
Making calls.
Doing shoot interviews and shit.
Hold on one second. I got an interview real quick. Okay, wait. No, I got you a job here. You're good. All right. He's like an employment placement agency.
Running a switchboard.
But at this time, Diamond Dallas Page was just a struggling manager. He wasn't even a wrestler yet at this point. Page started out really late in the game. Like he was in his mid-30s when he started wrestling.
Really?
Which is unheard of at that for a guy who's not like a big giant guy or an ex-NFL player or something. Like Goldberg was a little older, but look at him. You know what I mean? DDP is not a guy you look at and go, oh, he's a star. Yeah. You look at him and go, oh, throw him out of the strip club. He's leering at the women. So, but DDP is one of these guys who he does everything right. He's so nice to everybody. He helps people for no reason, goes out of his way, and I can't fucking stand him anyway. I just can't stand him. I feel like someone who's that positive is hiding something so dark.
You think so?
So dark.
There's gotta be, right?
I can't make my brain, like you said, I can't make my brain be 6'7", 250. I can't make my brain even get in a frame of mind where I'm that positive. So if I see that, I go, oh, what is he really thinking?
Right.
He wants to eat my internal organs if he's being this nice to me. He must really want to do something terrible. So anyway, he comes in, and he comes in this time, Scott Hall, as the Diamond Stud. That is his name now, not Scott Hall. They have a stable of wrestlers that Diamond Dallas Page has, and they call, I think it's a Diamond Exchange or some shit, whatever. So he brings in the Diamond Stud. So many puns. But he convinces him to, Page is really smart with shit, Diamond Dallas Page. He's a lot of guys where he like help them with their gimmicks and shit. Hey, why don't you do this? And it would be a little thing that would make it huge. Yeah. He told him, why don't you dye your hair black? He said, dye your hair fucking jet black.
No.
He was the guy who said, dye your hair jet black and slick it. He goes, you'll look completely fucking different.
Are you telling me he doesn't have black hair?
Fuck no. He's got brown hair.
Well,
he's got brown, just like a light brown hair. That's like, and at that point before that, he had like a lot of blonde in it too. So he was always like a light brown with blonde in it after a while, and a big mustache. So he said, shave the mustache, dye your hair jet black, and slick it. Get rid of that perm.
Brilliant.
No one will know who the fuck you are. And then they said one night, this is what Diamond Dallas Page said, if you know anything about Razor Ramon with the toothpick, he's always got the toothpick and flicks it at the camera and all that. He said one night they were at a diner and they had toothpicks, and Diamond Dallas Page said, hey, let's have the toothpicks in our mouth when we go out to the ring, and it'll be, we can flick them or whatever. And I guess he dropped his on the way out there. It fell out of his hand or his mouth, and Scott Hall had his, and he got there and he flicked it at the camera, and he kept it for the rest of his career.
Wow.
The toothpick gimmick was his gimmick for the rest of his fucking career.
After a diner.
After just
picking waffles out of his face.
Yeah, that's all it was.
And that's his idea.
And DDP was like, why don't we do this? And it's see what I mean? Little things. Dye your hair black. Do that. Rest of his career. Toothpick, hair dyed black.
Brilliant.
Like, smart guy here. So they tried to give him a good little push out of the gate here because he was new. And he was fucking jacked. And he looked cool with the black hair and all this shit. And they gave him like this is when you start to see the style of like the Razor Ramon too. Like he wore a vest and a certain cut of tights that you saw. Like you can see like his boots and his knee pads look similar. And you're like, okay, I see it coming together as that look, basically. They had him beat up Tom Zank when he came in, who was a cross-eyed looking guy who women thought was attractive for some reason. He was terrible. Awful. He also beat up Tommy Rich, who was another guy who proved that you don't have to be handsome to have women like you. Because he was a sex symbol in the early 80s, and he looked terrible. He just looked awful. So, but he in the beginning, they were really going with him, but then he kind of just faded out, and they stopped pushing him, and eventually he was getting beat all the time. He was in the Chamber of Horrors match at Halloween Havoc, which was one of the worst matches that's ever existed. It's a match that was in a steel cage and had a big electric chair in the middle of the ring.
What?
Big electric chair.
Whose idea was this shit?
Off to the side. This is WCW early 90s, baby. This is awful.
An electric chair.
Off to the side, there's a big switch. Like a big handle that you switch,
pull down,
like an old-fashioned lever to turn it on. And the point is, you're supposed
the
to
Addams Family that Wednesday did to Pugsley.
You're supposed to beat up your opponent, and finally get someone so beat up that you strap them into this electric chair, and then somebody else on your team hits the switch, and you electrocute the guy, and that's the end of the match. You win. Okay, it was the stupidest fucking thing ever, and the switch broke and fell down. So they had to, when the guy actually acted like he was turning it, he had to go up and like put it back into place and then act like he was turning it down. It caught on fire. Because there's supposed to be a fire effect. It caught on fire before the match even started. So as they were like doing intros, guys were going up trying to extinguish the fucking fire. It was a fucking disaster.
That's amazing.
A complete goddamn disaster. And then a guy, Abdullah the Butcher, had to act like he was being electrocuted, which was sad.
Poor guy.
It was so sad. So fucking sad. Anyway, he was in this match. But a lot of guys were. Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, Steiner brothers were in this. Van Vader was in this. So, I mean, a lot of guys in this match. It wasn't.
It's a great idea in theory. The execution was poor.
I would say very, very, very poor. 92, he continues to flounder in WCW. Doesn't really do much. He's with Paulie Dangerously, Paul Heyman, who had ECW forever there. He's with their little stable for a while, but that doesn't work out. And when he signed, this is what he says, when he signed with WCW, he went on TV with the new look, the black hair and all that, and he said he got a call from Pat Patterson, who was Vince McMahon's kind of number 2 at the time, and Pat said, Vince loves your new look. He said he loves your new look. Did you sign a contract with them yet? So he wanted to bring him in. And Scott said, yeah, I mean, I signed a 1-year contract. He said, well, I don't want to fucking work here. I'd rather work for you guys. And they said, well, when your contract is up, don't worry about it. You keep this together. He loves your look.
We got you.
When your contract is up, you're going to come here or whatever. So he said once his contract was up, he had to call up there and whatever, and he ended up being brought in. And he gets brought in, and Curt Hennig was there, and Curt Hennig had been there for years at this point, and was injured at the time, and he was like what Scott Hall called like the liaison between the office and the talent, like the Vince McMahon and the wrestlers. He would kind of told guys what Vince liked, and like he kind of helped out basically. And he brought Scott Hall in because they were ex-tag team partners, and said, look, this is, do this, do that, and basically he was fucking around. Scott Hall was fucking around doing Tony Montana, doing the imitation of Tony Montana.
Say hello to my little friend.
They had just watched Scarface or something, and he was going back and forth going, say hello to my little friend and all this type of shit. And apparently they get in front of Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon had never seen Scarface.
Oh, God.
So he sits down, and he starts doing this shit in front of Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon thinks he's fucking brilliant.
He's a genius.
He's like, oh my, that's amazing. And he's like, say hello to my little friend. And he's like, oh my God, say hello to the bad guy. And he's like, oh, let's get a camera crew together. And he's
Did
like,
you say your wife's a junkie? That's brilliant.
It's just Scarface. Yeah. It's all it was. So it's fucking funny. So they didn't know that he was just imitating a movie, and they didn't give a shit. They just thought it was great. So they saw him as this big, jacked up, slick haired Cuban. So they had him be a Cuban.
No!
So he goes on for the next few years impersonating an ethnicity, and it's fucking hilarious.
Holy shit. What year is this?
92.
Wow.
92. They did venues.
This does not seem like that far ago.
No, they did videos, and these videos of him fucking, these promo videos of him like walking in Miami, like with like a shitload of gold chains on. He's got like a curl.
Yes.
In the front,
I
he's
remember
like,
the curl.
I'm coming to the WWF. And he's like doing all this shit, say hello to the bad guy. And he's like, he's acting like he's like a fucking Cuban drug dealer.
And he is white as
And he's a fucking white army brat who shot a guy at an Orlando strip club. Like, he is not this cat at all. But he's got to pretend he is, and they think it's great.
A white kid from Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. This is not, nor who spent time in Germany. Like this, he's the farthest thing from this possible. But Vince McMahon loved it, and apparently, especially back then in the WWF, if Vince McMahon got behind your shit, it was going to the top because he's going to make sure it does because he likes it.
Right.
So Vince McMahon took him down, filmed all these vignettes, and this is he's paving the road with gold for you because you can't buy that kind of promotion. So he's just putting you out there and all this shit. He ends up, beating the shit out of everybody he encounters when they put him in the ring finally. He has his finishing move, which he used in WCW too, which was the Razor's Edge. It was the diamond drop or something in the beginning, and then later
spin him and fucking bring him down.
Get him up on your back, and then kind of, So
didn't he like...
and it got him in a crucifix, like they're back to back.
Oh, yeah,
and then dropped forward on his foot.
Right. I was thinking it was up on the top, and then you spin him and slam him down.
No, that was
between your legs.
No, that's like a power bomb. Kevin Nash did a power bomb.
That's who I'm looking at.
He didn't spin. Kevin Nash did got him in a pile driver, picked him up, and then.
You've got me thinking of giant dudes now, and I don't see him as a giant dude.
That's what I mean.
I just don't see it. That's
so
fucking
weird.
Crazy.
But that's the kind of the good. He makes him very marketable in terms of he can fight anybody because when he does fight a big guy, he can stand tall and look like a big guy, and he can fight a big guy. When he fights Shawn Michaels, who's not a huge guy, he can get down and not look like too huge of a guy.
Yeah,
like
he was always crouching like that.
He would fight different styles. styles for different guys. Scott Hall was good like that. He's good in the ring. There's no doubting that he is. I mean, we've joked and laughed at him and shit like that, but honestly, he was good at what he did.
Yeah.
He was a really good talker for whatever his gimmick was. He could do the right things. He was a good presence in the ring. He did everything well, and for a big guy, he did everything really pretty well for a guy that size, and he could wrestle with big guys, small guys. He was the type of guy too that when he was a good guy, if you're a good guy, it's hard when you lose, you just look like shit.
Yeah.
And the fans don't like. He could lose and they didn't care. He was like a Jake the Snake, where he didn't need to win matches. They'd still get behind him and chant his name even if he lost, which is not that. There's a certain special thing there that when promoters see that, that's a guy they can keep forever.
Sure.
Because you can do different things with him. You can make him whatever you need him to be, basically. So he does all these vignettes. He does everything like that. He has all of his gold chains and all that type of shit here. Which is fucking amazing.
I love how much cultural appropriation went on.
Oh, God. Are you kidding me?
Long before this fucking movement of stop it. You know
wrestling is the most culturally appropriated. They would take
it's the epitome.
Italian guys, or Chief J. Strongbow's an Indian, a fucking Italian guy from Philadelphia. I mean, it's ridiculous. Johnny B. Bad, they pretended he was black.
Right.
They had a white guy that they just had a tan on him, and they were like, "Well, just pretend he's like Little Richard."
Looks like a black guy.
Did you ever see him?
No.
Mark Marrow in the WWF.
Yes.
Remember him? They said he was a black guy in WCW. Jimmie, he came out with his hair all up. They had him, and he had a thin little mustache. They had him looking exactly like Little Richard.
He's just a Jew with a tan.
I think he's an Italian guy.
Hilarious.
He just had a tan, and they said that he would come out and go, woo, and do all that and strut around, and they had him like Little Richard music playing when he came in.
Ridiculous.
They just pretended he was black. It's like, that is not a black man.
You're not allowed to do that.
There are plenty of black people in this country. You're especially that place. Their company's based in Georgia. Right. You can't fucking go outside. There's 1 million black people. Fucking pick one of them and make him that guy. Don't fucking get a white guy and go, you're a black guy now. Go out there and pretend to be black. That's ridiculous. But that's what they would do. But he got involved in some shit for as far as, because I mean, at this point in the AWA, he kind of got some success, but the last few years, he hasn't really done that much.
Yeah.
Right away, he's in a program that involves Ric Flair and Randy Savage, and
Really?
it's Macho Man and Ric Flair going for the title, and he's right involved. He ends up being Flair's tag team partner.
How about this?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, which is also funny because he hated Ric Flair. Because they didn't get along because of, Flair was on the booking committee that kept him down, and it's just like comedy. He worked at that club, and he told the booker not to book me because I didn't, it's just like comedy. Just like comedy.
So dumb. I hate people that, never mind. It's so sick. Just that, I imagine comedy is very similar to that too. That what kind of person does that, and how do you figure that makes you look if you're holding somebody else back?
Yeah,
and nobody can do that anyway.
I mean, no. I mean, in wrestling, some of the guys,
possible.
Yeah. So if they had like a guy like Ric Flair, if he was on the booking committee and he didn't like you, he could hold you back.
Also, if you book enough shit on my hotel room, I might tell somebody not to book you.
That's the other thing too. You never know when you piss somebody off for this or that, or you did something shitty to that. Who knows who's mad at you? It's silly. So
another part is I don't talk to any club promoters or bookers about anybody but you, and if I tell them not to book you, they don't book me.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We kind of go together.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't care about anybody else. I don't talk about anybody else. That's it. If you ask me if I think someone's funny, I'll tell you. I'll probably go, yeah, he's okay. Even if I don't like them. If you run a club, I'm not going to fucking talk shit about somebody.
Why would anybody do that?
I have no clue.
Crazy.
So once in the WWF at the time, he becomes a huge star.
Yeah.
This is when he blows the fuck up because they put a lot behind him. And if Vince McMahon wants to make you famous, he'll make you famous. Yeah. And especially if you have any talent, because there's a lot of guys that he's tried with and it just didn't quite work because they sucked. Right. Scott Hall's actually talented. So if you put shit behind him, it works out. Yeah. He said, this is when he really kind of becomes embraces the lifestyle, we'll say also. Let's let him tell you about it here. In the 90s, this is kind of what he said here. He said, quote, "I always wanted to be a main eventer in pro wrestling. I lived my dream, but the excesses of the 80s and the huge money of the 90s became a great temptation for many of us. After working in a main event on the advice of one of my peers, I took downers. Xanax was my drug of choice before I stopped sweating and got into the showers. Then I'd have a few beers on the drive to the hotel and then hit the rack to make that 6 a.m. flights. Some nights we wouldn't go to bed bed at all and hit the hotel bar and then hit a diner, eat, and then go to the airport and sleep on the plane. So that's the lifestyle they're living.
Say the part about the Xanax again.
Oh, they take Xanax after the come down after the match.
All right.
This is one that this is a crazy quote from this documentary that we saw here. He says, quote, "I have shared hotel rooms with Shawn Michaels. On more than one occasion, we lay there and I go, 'Hey, Shawn, is your heart still beating?' And Shawn would respond, 'Wait a minute. Yeah.' And then he would say, 'Okay, here, take half of this then.' And he'd give him another pill because that's how they were just pushing the fucking envelope. 'You still alive? Okay, well, then let's take more drugs.'"
What kind of thought process is that?
They were,
first of all,
the stories from this period of especially Shawn Michaels, but all of their alcohol and drug excesses are fucking out. They're amazing. Yeah. Shawn Michaels used to just take so many somas, he'd fucking pass out in his food and diners and shit like that, and they'd have to carry him out. Like,
that's a big fucking guy to be carrying out of the place.
Yeah, they carry guys. It happened to all of them. They were all like that. I have some stories about Scott Hall later about him being in no condition to do anything.
Yeah.
And it's a mess. But they said at this point, the drug testing in WWE was so stringent because this was when the FBI was coming down on Vince McMahon for steroids, and he was up to go to trial and all that shit. So the steroid testing and they tested hardcore for like street drugs, like weed. Yeah. Weed was out. You couldn't. They would test you and you'd get fucking busted in a heartbeat.
Why would you want to do that anyway? You're wrestling.
Well, I would think for your injuries would help, rather than painkillers. But they couldn't, because a lot of times they would smoke weed, a lot of the guys, and then it turned into painkillers. They couldn't smoke weed anymore. So they're doing painkillers, and they said all you could do was painkillers and booze. Those are the only things that you could not fail your drug test for.
Wow.
So they do tons of painkillers and tons of booze just to push it. They'd go, "I don't know what this is." "Well, we'll take 2 and see what happens." Like shit, pills like that. Like, I don't know. I guess I'll take 2 and we'll find out.
Xanax is the fucking Gatorade of wrestling. Is that what that is? It was
everything. Though? Somas were really the ones. Okay. Somas are the Gatorade of wrestling.
That's really just a nutty thing.
They all were living on somas.
Muscle
back then.
relaxers.
Well, yeah, it was make them feel better, and then also you take that with booze, and that's quite a buzz.
You're probably pretty well cramped up after a wrestling match.
Well, it's just everything. I would assume it just makes your body feel loose and good rather than beat up and shitty. And then you mix that with booze and feel no pain for a while, and then you.
Soma.
I hate all fucking pills like that.
Yeah,
they make
pills
me feel
are no
awful.
fun.
No fun for me at all.
I hate even when a doctor prescribes them.
No, I won't.
I hope to let you feel what that's like one day.
Fuck, man. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, someday a doctor will prescribe me something. It's been a long time since I've been prescribed anything.
When they prescribe
from an actual doctor, anyway.
When they prescribe me anything other than antibiotics, I hate it because I hate taking those things. I hate the way all those pills make me feel. They're
you're going to
terrible.
get a ton of conspiracy theorists tweeting at you going, "Don't take the antibiotics either," because they're, we know.
Whatever.
And Jim Henson died from strep throat. So there's a balance here, everybody. Calm down. So
Steve Jobs died because he ate cashews instead of taking cancer medication.
Yeah, it happens.
It's ridiculous.
So 1993 is WrestleMania 9, which is one of the worst WrestleManias ever. It was outdoors in Vegas, and it looked like shit. And who was it?
Yeah.
The main event. It was a convoluted mess.
Oh boy.
There was a double main event. The first one was Hulk Hogan and Brutus Beefcake versus $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and IRS for the tag titles, and then that broke up into just a disqualification schmaz. And then the main event was Bret Hart versus Yokozuna, where Bret Hart beat Yokozuna, but like in a shitty way after Fuji threw salt in his eyes or something. So then Hulk Hogan came out to defend Bret's honor.
Oh, Christ.
And Mr. Fuji challenged Hulk Hogan right now in the ring. "You think you're so tough you get in here?" And Hulk Hogan went in and like did a clothesline and a leg drop and won the title. Even though he was like, that was like the last thing he ever did in WWF, and then he was in WCW after that. But they tried one more time with him, and it didn't quite work.
And then WCW was the NWO stuff, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Quick thing here, because we won't talk much about the WWF shit because it's very famous, and if you saw it, you saw it. If not, what do you care? So the other stuff was just more funny. They did a little angle here with Sean Waltman, who was the 1-2-3 Kid at the time, who was later 6-Pac and X-Pac and all those different Pacs. Sean Waltman here, and he becomes part of their little clique. They end up with what they call the clique, basically, backstage little group that kind of has a lot of influence over things. It's a bunch of stars, and that's Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Shawn Michaels. Sean Waltman's kind of the trail behind, young guy, and then Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, when he comes in too,
all the
becomes
handsome
a part
fucks.
of that. Yeah, we're the best guys, and we think we're the best, and so they kind of grouped up together. And so they do an angle with 1-2-3 Kid where they have the 1-2-3 Kid beat Scott Hall on Monday Nitro or Monday Night Raw. Okay. They do a weird, just a weird little fluke win, little roll up, little quick win where this guy was tiny at the time.
So fast.
And at the time he probably weighed 140 pounds. And Scott Hall was twice his size. It looked like a guy beating up his child. It was like, oh, that poor little boy. And they had him beat him, this is when Scott Hall was a bad guy, Razor Ramon. So he was all pissed off and he wanted to fucking kill him. And this was the big angle that somehow turned him into a good guy. Turned Razor Ramon into a good guy. By 94, he has a big WrestleMania 10. He has a ladder match with Shawn Michaels, which is kind of the most famous, like the first real famous ladder match in the U.S. kind of. And where have you ever seen this match?
No, I've heard of them. I've seen them on wrestling games, but I've never seen them live.
It's pretty crazy.
It's a big folding ladder in the middle of the ring.
Like a fucking 12-foot ladder in the ring that there's a belt suspended from this thing, and they have to put the ladder there and climb it and get the belt. Right. And over the course of this, they beat each other with the ladder. They fall off the fucking ladder. It's pretty dangerous shit.
Sure.
And they have an amazing match at WrestleMania 10 with this ladder. It's really awesome. Holds up to this day. March 27th, 1995, he has a daughter. Or his wife does, but Dana has a daughter. But he's involved. Name of Cassidy there. May 1996. Now, this is when he's about to leave WWF. Okay. He's getting tired. He wants more money. He says he's been there for 3-4 years. He's always been a big star, and his money's not going up anymore. Okay. And he just wonders why. So I saw an interview with him where he talks about it. He said he went to Vince McMahon, and he said, hey, and he said the way I did it was, what can I do to improve? What can I do to improve? Can I do something better in the ring? Can I do something better on the mic?
Clearly it's something on me because I keep getting the same money.
Yeah. That's what he said. Like, my money's not going up. And, he said, so what can I do to improve? Can I do more promote? What can I do to help the company more that'll make me more money? Yeah. And Vince McMahon told him, you're doing everything right. You're doing everything great. There's nothing you can improve on. Just keep doing what you're doing. And he said, well, the problem is, I'd love to do that, but my money's not going up, and that's why I'm saying this. So maybe
I can do extra and make the same, and then take it into consideration later.
Yeah, well, Vince told him just, you're fine, and he was like, no, I'm asking you this not because I'm worried about how you feel about me. I'm worried about my money not going up, and it hasn't gone up. I'm asking if there's any way to improve it, and he said no, basically. And so Scott Hall's idea was, well, tell you what, our merchandise. And this is what Scott said. He said, my merchandise. He goes, you little decimal. He goes, you move that decimal over one spot on my merchandise money. He goes, you won't notice. I'm happy. He said it won't affect the McMahon family very much, but the Hall family will notice a lot.
Brilliant.
And Vince said, nope, I can't do that. You got the standard contract that everybody else has. You got the one the Undertaker has, and it's the same one that Shawn Michaels has, and nobody makes any more because he didn't want to set a Hogan precedent.
Yeah.
Because Hogan had just left, and he was the guy that Hogan got whatever he wanted because he was a bigger star than anybody. So he wanted to this is when he was like, no. Rather than Hulk Hogan be the draw, we need WWF on the marquee to be the draw.
Got it.
And whoever's here is just coming. Whoever wants to watch, they just want to see the wrestling. They don't want to see a guy.
Right.
So he won't let anybody do that. So he says, fuck. So he ends up giving his notice, which is, I guess, you have to, before your contract's up, you have to tell them 90 days ahead of time, or else it would roll over to the next year.
Yuck.
So
I know those things.
Yeah, so so he had to give it in writing. So he gave his notice in writing to not roll over the contract because then he wanted to renegotiate or go somewhere else.
Right.
So
free agency.
What they did was they told him that he flunked a drug test. And this is what they do. Shawn Michaels said the same thing. If they were mad at you, they'd call you in and go, yeah, you flunked the drug test, so you're suspended. So now you can't wrestle for 2 weeks and you don't get paid. So it's basically just
go fuck yourself.
That was their way of slapping you back down and saying you're not that powerful. I can take you off the air in 2 seconds because you failed a drug test. And he's like, I didn't do anything different. So basically either he was failing drug tests and they didn't care about it, or he, didn't fail the drug test and they just said that to fucking dick with him. Mm-hmm. One of the two, basically. So it all ends up happening. He ends up making a deal to go to WCW, who had signed Hogan 2 years before that and was really trying to challenge WWF as the #1 #1 show, and on the Monday night deal. So he ends up signing with WCW, signs a big deal where he works less days a year and makes more money.
Oh, my man.
He makes twice the money, works half the days. So how do you not do that deal?
Yeah.
And I think he says I think it's in the range of about $700,000 a year at this point.
I like
in
it.
'96.
My man.
Which is not too shabby.
It's a deal.
He's excited. It's guaranteed money too. The WWF didn't have guaranteed money.
Okay.
So if you were hurt and didn't work for 2 months, they'd pay you a little bit of your downside guarantee, but you weren't making big money.
Right.
You were fucked basically unless you could work. Whereas here, you broke your neck, you're still getting paid.
Beautiful.
So it's a good thing for him. So he ends up going there. They do a big thing when he leaves WWF where they basically do what they call the curtain call, where the 4 guys there, Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Nash and Hall, who were enemies in wrestling, did a big thing where they all hugged each other and like did a big bow and all that shit together, which that pissed off the office really badly.
Really?
Because they're like, hey, you guys are supposed to not like each other.
Right.
Like the fans don't know.
Right.
So whatever.
That you're real people.
Yeah.
With probably barbecue with your families on the weekends.
So they punished Triple H for it.
Really?
He was the last
guy.
He's the only guy who probably, it wasn't his idea. He's the newest guy. Right. Everybody else said, this is what we're doing, but he was the guy that they could punish.
Yeah.
Michaels was the champ, couldn't punish him. Hall was gone, couldn't punish him, and Nash was leaving the next week, so you couldn't punish him.
But Triple H got the last laugh. Didn't he fuck Stephanie McMahon?
He's married to Stephanie McMahon and currently is in charge of a lot of WWE. So yeah, he ended up getting the last laugh there. So Scott,
curtain call worked out.
It worked out just fine for him, but at the time it looked like he really fucked his stock.
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to win King of the Ring that year, and because of that, they punished him and didn't let him win it.
Brutal.
And that is what let Stone Cold Steve Austin win that and do that 316 promo on Jake Roberts and make him a giant star.
How about that?
So this is all.
Thank you, Triple H.
Everything is intertwined. Thank you, Scott Hall, for leaving.
Yeah,
which got the ball rolling here.
How about that?
So he goes to WCW, and they do a very smart thing with him. Normally, wrestling companies are so excited they got a new guy, they just bring him down the aisle, and they're like, here he is, and brings him out, and then he's just another guy.
Yeah.
They did something smart here, where they brought him, there was a match going on in the ring, fight going on in the ring, and he walked through the crowd. No announcement, no nothing. In the middle of the match, he walked through the crowd, hopped over the guardrail, climbed up in the ring, and the wrestlers just stopped wrestling. Like, what the fuck is going on? Why is he here?
Guy?
But they know who he is. Everybody knows, and all the wrestling fans know who the fuck he is. Yeah. He's fucking Razor Ramon, obviously, but he's in one of the most 90s outfits ever. He's wearing like high-waisted jeans with a fanny pack, a denim vest, just full 90s with his mullet and everything. And he gets in the ring, grabs the mic, and says fucking, starts talking shit about WCW. You guys are punks. You know why I'm here.
Yeah.
We're going to take over this place and blah, 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 blah. I got a big surprise for you next week. And so it's like everyone's like, what the fuck is that all about? Like no one knew what happened. Then I think 2 weeks later, Kevin Nash came in as his big surprise.
Oh boy.
And so they became kind of like this force. They were all scared. They would rough up the announcers and shit, and rough up the good guy wrestlers and even the bad guy wrestlers. It was WCW guys, good and bad, and then these two guys.
Yeah.
And then they do a big angle here at the Bash at the Beach where they end up bringing Hogan in.
Yeah.
And Hogan is a bad guy now. After all, they flip Hogan from a good guy to a bad guy.
I thought you were saying they gang raped him at the beach.
They gang raped him right on the beach. They Eiffel Towered him. It was pretty impressive. They held their high five in the middle for a long time. That's what made it impressive, is they really joined forces to give Hogan a good front and back. So
I wish that happened.
That would be amazing. So that's a really bad depiction. So they bring Hogan becomes a bad guy. NWO becomes the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
They're the big, and they were too.
Yeah,
they blew up WCW.
Everybody knows what that little N, big W.
Yeah, everybody knows that. And there's all sorts of different things that imitate that too, where you'll see any 3-letter thing will have the big letter in the middle and the 2 letters. That's all NWO imitations.
Yep.
You still see people in NWO shirts.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
It was a great time to watch wrestling.
It was
so
on
fun.
both channels.
It felt like now knowing this part, I didn't realize this much, but the wrestlers they were in charge of it. That's what they felt anyway.
Yeah,
and it showed.
Well, they had a lot of ownership of it. Yeah, they weren't just given a script and said do this. They were like, here's what we're going to do, and the wrestlers would say maybe we could do this. Well, I can do that. Okay, well, what if we do that and this?
Yeah,
and it was
give them creativity, and it blows up, and it's fun. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and this was a lot of fun. And the NWO would come in and they'd do run-ins and beat the shit out of people, and they'd always win, and they'd cheat, and they'd have a crooked referee on their side. And
the video games were the best one.
They actually were.
They were so fun. Those were the best wrestling games.
Those were actually a
blast.
The NWO WCW game, I think, on PlayStation was really fucking good.
I had it on Sega Genesis,
really good.
And then Nintendo 64.
I know which one you're talking about too.
So fun.
That's known as one of the best wrestling games ever. Yeah, it's known as really good.
Fun.
Let's just say it now. Grace. This is Grace. This is Grace, my friends. Yeah, definitely. That is May 96, if that's all going on. June 3rd, 96. This is a week after he comes into WCW. WWF lawyers send a letter to Scott Hall informing him that he's infringing on WWF's intellectual property by portraying Razor Ramon, and that they will withhold all future payments, his back merchandise and pay-per-view checks from WWF until the matter is settled.
Wow.
They said, Dear Mr. Hall, I have the letter here.
Oh, boy.
This letter will serve to put you on notice of your deliberate infringement of Titan's intellectual property rights in connection with your appearance on this past Monday WCW's Nitro show. Having reviewed the tape of your appearance, the text of the various statements made by you during your appearance, and the explicit references to past and ongoing storylines of Titan Sports, it's obvious that you were attempting by your appearance to suggest to the consuming public that you and others for the WWF were now going to be appearing on Turner Networks as part of some interpromotional matches. That's what they're suing him. They're suing him saying that he dressed like Razor Ramon. They said you dressed like Razor Ramon and utilized the Hispanic accent given to you by Titan as a part of the character portrayal.
Okay.
Now, they own the character Razor Ramon. He didn't come out saying he was anybody. The announcers didn't say his name. They didn't say anything about him. They did that on purpose because they didn't know what to call him.
Got it.
But he came out not in the like yellow or purple Razor Ramon gear. He came out in jeans and shit. But he came out doing the accent. He came out, hey, yo. Right. He came out doing that, and he goes, the bad guy is here, and he was doing all that horse shit. So they were saying you can't do that. So they said...
Let's talk to Al Pacino.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Somebody else.
What is Alf? Yeah, he's the one who did it first. They said that they have no objections to you portraying a new or different character devised by either you or WCW, but basically threaten. Okay. So then the next month, they file a lawsuit against Turner for this whole thing about Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, quote, invading WCW. And there's 4 counts of it, and I'll just tell you what I won't read them to you because it's the same shit. They basically say that they ended up having to apologize on the air, saying that they weren't saying that WWF wrestlers are fighting in our thing now. That's not what they were saying.
His name is Scott Hall.
Yeah.
He can be...
They had no anything from him.
Okay.
So they didn't call Nash anything either, and then they ended up eventually calling them Nash and Hall, and they called them the Outsiders, and that's what they ended up deciding on, and they could call them Kevin Nash and Scott Hall because those are fucking names. Yeah, and they never used that as anything else. They tried to say the toothpick thing they own too, but then there's footage of him on WCW before he went there flicking the fucking toothpick, so they couldn't say that. But they did, and even too, his tights, they were the same style. He wore the vest. He just changed out the colors to like red and put, it was very similar. Put NWO on it, but that was kind of his look when he came into WWF. He was the Diamond Stud updated kind of thing. So. Anyway, they ended up suing. They said that the lawyers are going to make arguments in front of a judge. WCW argued that in the past few years, 41 wrestlers have jumped from one promotion to another, and in 28 of those cases, they showed up at the other promotion using the same persona as before, and no lawsuit was ever filed.
But it's because Scott Hall is a big fucking deal.
It's also because Razor Ramon, for merchandising purposes by the early 90s, they had locked those. When you came into WWF, they wanted to give you a new persona that they could license and control and own, rather than you coming in. Like Junkyard Dog was Junkyard Dog before he came in.
Yeah.
So he was Junkyard Dog when he left because they couldn't own it. Hulk Hogan was Hulk Hogan when he got there.
Right.
Randy Savage was Randy Savage when he got Jake the Snake. Same shit. Like they had no control over those guys, and they hated that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like that's why you saw Brutus Beefcake appear as like 45 different guys in the 90s on WCW because they owned Brutus Beefcake,
That's
WWF,
brutal,
and he couldn't
and they
use
did
it.
that shit to The Rock too, where they wouldn't let him be in movies as The Rock. He has to go by.
Really?
Actually, you know what? He may have won his lawsuit.
Did they have
sued him?
Really?
Absolutely.
I didn't
they tried
hear
to
anything
keep
about
him
that.
from using the name.
That
The Rock.
seems odd because that would be promotion for them.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But even in movies, they didn't want him using the name The Rock
That's weird.
because McMahon's a cunt. Just to be difficult.
I don't fuck. Well, Vince here in the silverest statement ever, he says that he regrets filing the lawsuit. Obviously, regretted it at the time, but he said, "quote I have finally been pushed up against a wall, and with no other options to protect my company, my wife and I have committed our adult lives to building the World Wrestling Federation. Now put those overalls on and take your shirt off." God damn it! Like that's an odd legal document.
The goddamn it really puts it over.
God damn it.
It really does.
So, Hogan comes in and there's a big deal there. Nitro it's huge. The NWO is the biggest fucking angle of, a 20-year period in wrestling.
It was so much fun.
It's giant. It's a giant thing. And then it turns into a complete pile of shit.
Really?
Well, they brought in all the B guys.
Yeah.
They brought in all these leftover shithead guys, watered it down, made it shit. Yeah, there was half the guy. Then they broke into different segments.
Yeah.
They had the Wolfpack, the red guys.
Yeah.
Then they had the LWO.
Right.
It got silly.
Ugh.
When it was three guys that were badasses, it was pretty cool. And then it got stupid.
Well, it was shortly after they brought in Sting, right? Because Sting
had been there the whole time.
Had he?
Yeah, Sting did the whole thing where he had the blonde spiky hair. No, Goldust, he left WWF right after he was supposed to have a feud with Goldust, but he didn't want to do the feud with Goldust because Goldust is like a gay character, borderline gay, and he said Scott Hall didn't want to do that angle. He's not very LGBTQ friendly, we'll just say.
Scott Hall?
Some statements later on either. Also, not real friendly. So he wouldn't wrestle that guy.
But Goldust came to the NWO too, didn't he?
No. No, they brought in Six. They brought in Sean Waltman, and they brought in DiBiase was there.
DiBiase stick around that long?
He wasn't wrestling. He was like their manager. Like I'm the guy who paid to bring these guys in because I have so much money.
Jesus.
That character. They brought in like Virgil, who was DiBiase's. The black guy that carried DiBiase's fucking suitcase or whatever, they brought in that guy.
His assistant or whatever the fuck.
His bodyguard, they called him. They brought in that, Scott Norton, guys like that. Just these shitty guys. They had a whole group of like B guys after a while.
Guys that are just in like a Speedo and then some knee pads.
They were just not Buff Bagwell, those guys. They were just jerks.
Completely replaceable.
Yeah, all the guys, most of those NWO guys were very replaceable. This is the period when Sting went from having the blonde hair, all spiky, to looking like the Crow and going up in the rafters. And Starrcade was in '97. It was like the biggest pay-per-view at the time anybody ever had. Hogan and Sting. It was a huge deal.
I loved that guy.
No, he was cool. It was
awesome.
cool. It's a cool angle.
Yeah.
So, 97, they had a little run-in with the Nasty Boys here. Remember the Nasty Boys?
No.
Okay, Nasty Boys. They're like Mohawks and toothless and big sloppy guys. They were fun, I guess, at the time. But he had a little thing here where he hit Jerry Saggs with a chair. Jerry Saggs had an injured neck, and he was pissed off at him. I guess in the next match, Saggs took some fucking liberties with Scott Hall and was punching him for real. Hitting him with live rounds, as they call it, which, isn't cool. And I guess this would turn into a big backstage kerfluffle.
Sure.
And the Nasty Boys eventually ended up leaving and suing WCW over it.
Wow.
So everybody sued WCW. If you remember the Hardbody Harrison episode, we always forget about him.
Yeah.
The Hardbody Harrison episode, he was part of the lawsuits, racial discrimination lawsuits. Once everybody saw that they were just settling lawsuits, everybody sued them.
Sure.
And just sued them big time.
But when you're running pimps and hoes, no lawsuits lawsuits.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Sit down, sir.
Yeah, sit down
You're
with your
criminal.
stable. You and your stable.
You weirdo.
Yeah, let's find out. When you're not in jail for life, we'll talk about it. So, May of 98, Dana divorces Scott.
Oh, no.
This is when Scott's out of control. He's drinking like a fish at this point. He has rehab stints. Altogether, he has like 15 rehab stints.
Yeah.
So we can't talk about all of them, but I know in 97, he has at least one 30-day stint in rehab. In 98, he has at least one stint in rehab. And you can see it as in 98, WCW does an angle because Scott Hall's a real drunk in real life, and as we'll talk about, going to be getting in trouble and shit outside the ring for his alcohol. They just say, well, let's just make him a drunk as his character. So they would tell him to...
How drunk do you gotta be?
Yeah, they'd be like, just go with it. And they would tell him, they'd tell him, quote, pretend to be drunk on your interviews, to where he'd just get drunk and do interviews.
Easy.
So he was just drinking the whole time, and he could put it under his character, and that was their way of hiding his drinking. It's disgusting.
What's his...
rather than helping him.
Do we know what his drink of choice is? What does he
Anything.
Like? Okay.
Tequila, I know he likes later, but beer,
'cause
booze.
he's Spanish.
Yeah, because he's Cuban, remember. So... she divorces him, Dana. Dana says, quote, drugs, alcohol, and wrestling. He chose all of that over us. He gave us up. He gave his kids up. I would ask the kids to write their dad. They needed a dad. They didn't need a wrestler. They never got one letter back. So this was a problem here. He was really, he was in a mess of a time. He was such an alcoholic at this time. Well, let's talk about it. August of 1998. This is an arrest that happens here. This is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A 56-year-old woman tells police that she was waiting in her car outside of her hotel when she saw Scott Hall and rolled her window down to talk to him, because he's on television. Right. He apparently reached into the car, grabbed her breast, and tried to pull her hand to his dick.
Oh, my word.
So she apparently, there was police close by. She went and reported it to police.
Yeah.
And Hall was arrested in his hotel room and was later released, but he was charged, as we'll talk about it here. This is bad, too. He's been in rehab 3 times in the last year, and now he's groping women.
Yeah. What's worse, though, as a kid that wrote a letter to their father in 1996?
Yeah.
What's worse, getting a letter back that's like drunken and meandering, or none at all?
I think you can rationalize the drunken meandering.
Can
you go,
ya?
man, he's probably in the car. Yeah, he's driving. He's so busy. He's a busy guy. He's on TV. He just wrote it while he was doing
piece of paper with no lines and all the words start going down.
Yeah, he was on a plane. They were taking off. You know how that goes. The angle gets weird. As a kid, you could rationalize that. But no letter, you got to go like, they lost it in the mail. The mailman's got it in for me.
Eesh.
Fuck, man.
I don't know which is worse, but I'll tell you which is definitely worse. Being a woman who just recognizes somebody and then has a handful of his cock.
How's it going? Hey, what?
That's
after
way
he
worse.
grabbed your tit. It's aggressive.
That's way
You were
worse.
so shocked from the tit grab, he pulled your hand to his crotch. So, man, like we said, and this was the time period, too. This is when everybody was dying.
Yeah.
This is when the guys were dying. In the Jake the Snake episode, I dropped into the timeline whenever anybody would die, and it was the whole episode, just constant. This is the time Brian Pillman just died. Louis Spicoli just fucking died. Other guys were about to die. Obviously, they didn't know that, but I mean, Kurt Hennig would die. Davey Boy Smith would die. All these people would die all over the place. They're all dying, and there doesn't seem to be. They just go, it's cool. Just drink and pretend you're drunk on the air and keep drinking and do whatever you want.
Bananas.
So it's a fucking mess. They're just going to ignore this shit, and they're making so much money. They're like, why rock the boat? Let's not make a big deal out of this.
Yeah.
And another thing too, at this point, because of the divorce, he's in a custody battle with Dana, and this isn't the type of charge that's really going to go well in a custody battle.
Well, not just that. She has the stark reality of being able to just prove to a judge.
There you go.
There he is,
he's
drunk
a mess.
and grabbing and pushing.
Yeah, this is what alcohol has done.
Forcing people to grab his dick while he grabs a tit.
Well, if Jesus Christ. If it doesn't get any worse, this is 2 months later, October 2nd, 1998, he's at the Diamond Mine Strip Club.
Oh my God.
In Orlando,
Yeah.
which sounds awful. That sounds so dirty and scummy.
The dollhouse.
Jesus, the Diamond Mine Strip Club. He's belligerent and drunk.
Yeah.
And for some unknown reason, nobody knows why, he got angry and keyed a limousine really bad outside, like all the way down and fucked it all up. Some limousine that was outside, causing $2,000 worth of damage.
That's a lot.
And being arrested for it too.
Yeah.
They called the cops on him and he ends up getting picked up for that. This is along the same time. Like I said, there's a custody battle. He's pretending, quote unquote, to be drunk on the air, which he's really drunk on the air. He's being a dick. Like he's even when he's out there, you can tell he's like, he says kind of behind the scenes shit, but like not that's advantageous to the angle. Yeah. Like, at one point he yells at the Giant. He says, there's the big guy, the Big Show is late coming out. And he says, Giant, that's your cue. So like, come on, let's go. Like he's not even trying anymore, basically, because he just doesn't care. When he wants to, he puts it on though. He can perform.
He's like Will Ferrell in Blades of Glory puking in the.
I don't never see. I cannot stand Will Ferrell movies. They drive me crazy.
Well, there's a point in the movie where because he's a washed up figure skater and he's in like an Escapades show.
Yeah.
And he's just like saying horrible things. He's mic'd up. He's inside like a stupid fucking outfit and he's saying horrible things because he's drunk as shit. Is essentially what Scott Hall is doing right now.
There, yeah.
Show that Giant, that's your fucking cue.
He doesn't care.
Yeah. That's what it is. He doesn't care anymore.
There is a house show in Baltimore here in October of 1998, October 5th. This is 3 days after the keying a limousine incident here. Jesus Christ. He cuts a promo. He used to come out always in WCW and say, hey, yo. And then he would go, how many people? He'd say, it's time to do the survey. It's how many people are here to see WCW? How many people are here to see the NWO? And he'd do that every time. And he'd go, oh, no matter what they say, he'd go, oh, another win for the good guys. And he'd throw the fucking mic down.
Okay.
So he'd do that. He'd always do some kind of promo before his match. And this one, he says that after the show, he's having a big party at his hotel and says to all the women to go to the front desk and ask for Scott Hall and, quote, for all the fags to ask for Kevin Nash. He said that over a microphone to a crowd of, this is not very LGBTQ friendly, is what I'm talking about.
Oh my God, that's brilliant, though.
Well, it's hilarious, obviously. It's awful, but it's fucking... I mean, for crime and sports, it's pretty par for the course. Yeah, it's kind of par for the course. So, but that's his idea of a joke to Kevin Nash to say that.
That is fantastic.
And in '98, that was borderline socially acceptable.
Today, all you have to change it to is all the dudes ask.
All
for
the
Kevin.
dudes. That's it.
That's all you got to do.
It's implied.
Just as funny.
You know what? It's actually kind of more funny.
It might be.
I think it's more funny because you actually have to think about it for half a second. Whereas that's just gratuitous. He didn't need that. You know,
the whole idea with comedy is to connect somewhere without saying it.
Without saying it, and then look at the person like, did
See
that,
what
right?
I mean?
See what I did there? So October 7th, 98, 2 days later, is a busy week. Dana writes an open letter. Dana starts writing social media. If there's like groups on the internet, fan groups, she goes in there and writes shit about Scott. To his friends, she writes letters. She's always writing people letters, trying to help him.
Oh, okay.
Always trying to get him help and shit like that. She wrote a letter saying it was, quote, to anyone who cares. Shit like that. Basically, she ripped WCW for not putting him in rehab when he needs it, even though he'd been to rehab 3 times in the last year. But to keep letting him go out there and live his fucking lifestyle and to be self-destructive and to just let them do it. She called it deplorable, disgusting, and inexcusable.
She invented deplorable.
Deplorable. She said to let him perform while he's under the influence. He has real addictions to drug and alcohol, and they're exploiting it for profit and ratings, which was all fucking true. She begged that they would, that they discontinue this controversial bullshit and do all this. She said she's putting all of her problems in God's hands. And that Scott's a very sick man, and his addictions have destroyed his marriage and his children's future and their lives and all this shit.
P.S. Kevin Nash is a fag.
P.S. All the dudes go see Kevin Nash.
Did she throw that in?
Mic drop. So
That's amazing.
November 22nd, 1998, the night before Thanksgiving, 98, he is driving his Cadillac. He ends up being arrested because for DUI after this, because the witnesses alleged that he was driving on the wrong side of the road, going westbound in an eastbound lane on Red Bug Road in Seminole County. Ended up being a 3-car accident where Hall fell. They think he fell asleep at the wheel and he ended up flipping into a ditch.
Jesus.
Driving his Cadillac. They observed 2 open and 1 unopened beer bottles in his car when he went to the hospital to question him. At the hospital, they said that he smelled of alcohol just on his breath. Hall told them that he didn't remember how the accident happened. He was released by the doctor to perform a sobriety test. He agreed to that. They asked him if he'd been drinking, and he said no. Then he failed field sobriety tests. So they arrested him. They arrested him for DUI, and he was given 2 breathalyzer tests. This is 3.5 hours after the accident.
Oh, God.
So it's dissipated. 3.5 hours is a long time. He blew a .27.
Holy shit.
Do you know how much fucking alcohol that is?
That's a lot.
That's a lot. It's more than 3 times the legal limit, A.
Wow.
B, most people aren't walking around that drunk.
Yeah.
You taking a seat. That is 3.5 hours after he was driving.
He was probably that .04.
That's like where John Bonham died.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you killed rock drummers with that level of alcohol.
My mother passed
If he wasn't as big as he was, he'd be dead.
My mother went to a wedding, and my mom doesn't drink heavy, but she went to a wedding and was drinking screwdrivers all night. She passed out and was puking in the bathroom. 2 hours later, they took her to the hospital because she was unresponsive.
Yeah.
They got her to the hospital. They tested her blood. They didn't breathalyze her, obviously, because she's fucking out of it.
Yeah.
And she was a .42 or some shit like that.
That's...
Damn, and they didn't expect her to make it.
I was gonna say, that's like dead
fucking
level.
Bananas.
This guy's out driving like that, just cruising along in his Cadillac. This year he totals 6 Cadillacs, he says. 6 Cadillacs in a year he totals.
That's an expensive
all
year.
drinking.
Wow.
All drinking.
Number 2, you go, these are expensive. I can't keep this up.
Now
4 more.
Well, it's fucking crazy. Then the police asked him for a urine sample to see what the fuck else was in him, and he declined to give them a sample. Now, also, one of his friends told police that he was depressed about personal matters and had been drinking all night before the accident.
Wow.
So this is not great. Now, this is just things are, and he has later on, he talks about this, and we'll do an in their own words on this. Let's let him say it. What do you say here? In their own words, quote, I tell my kids this. I can't tell you not to drink and do drugs. They are fun. It's fun. They work. But what sucks is when you want to quit and you can't, and pretty soon you alienate or hurt everyone around you. It's a family disease, then you can't keep a promise to anybody. What sucks the most is when you can't even keep a promise to yourself. So
fun.
Well, that's the problem, though. They say this all the time. People do drugs because they work. That's why.
Yeah.
If you're feeling shitty and you take drugs, you won't feel shitty anymore.
Isn't that great?
Hey, look at that.
Solid.
They figured it out. So that's the same reason dogs hump the couch, because it feels good. You know what I'm saying? They don't know why it feels good, but they know it feels good. That's why people do it. So he's basically saying this is a family disease, and if you do it, it's going to get a hold of you. So be careful.
It's going to ruin your family.
It's going to ruin your family. Well, January 1999, Dana and Scott reunite.
Oh.
After this divorce. March of 1999, Dana and Scott remarry.
Oh.
Holy shit. Remarry. That's unexpected.
Is she drinking, or did he
No.
quit?
Well, let's see what she says about it.
Okay.
She says, quote, I remarried him because of my faith and knowing that God can work miracles, and that's what we needed. I was born again in 98. Oh boy, that's when she started going off. And I didn't want a divorce. I've just been praying. I've been torn between reality and my faith in knowing that God can work miracles. The reality right now is that Scott Hall isn't going to change. But she's trying, is what she says. And it doesn't last long, though, because then September 99, Scott files for divorce.
Yeah, he's had enough of this Jesus
Yeah,
shit.
he's like, all right, enough already. You know what? I need a drink after all this Jesus shit.
Let's go back to church. They had
Jesus
wine shots
Christ.
there
I'm
earlier.
going to the diamond mine. Okay. So January of 2000, though, they get back together again.
Yeah.
This is just back and forth here. Now, she demanded that her husband sign a paper stating that he must exhibit moral and Christian behavior around the children. You want me to read this to you?
Yeah, I
what
do.
this is? He signs this January 31st.
This is the contract he signed?
With his wife.
Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Quote, the father agrees with and does acknowledge that the children are being raised by the mother in a Christian home with Christian instruction and values. The father does agree to exhibit moral conduct and to provide a moral environment while in the presence of and during all contact with the children, in support of what would be the best interest of the children. It is further agreed that the father will not consume any unprescribed medication, illegal substances, or alcohol within 24 hours of the contact time with the children. That sounds like, it's going to be not a fun time. So, he's like, ooh, that's
brutal.
That's wonderful. An addiction counselor that worked with Scott Hall wrote, in my estimation, the need for counseling has always been there based on my knowledge of the problems of Mrs. Hall and Scott Hall. Both seem to suffer from conditions that threaten a relationship with each other and put the children at risk from knowing what is normal. Yeah. Scott's dependency problem is certainly a major factor contributing to the family dysfunction, as well as Mrs. Hall's codependency condition, which keeps her tied into this family problem.
Now you're talking.
This is all reality here. They're both a problem. Without treatment for both of these conditions, the family will continue to suffer. The kids will certainly be traumatized by these experiences. I would say so. It's a problem.
That's a great diagnosis. That doctor really earned his education.
If a woman won't leave, or a man or a woman or whoever, if you won't leave your alcoholic spouse, you're probably codependent. That's the fucking reason, because you can't disconnect yourself from that shit. So you're part of it. Yeah, you both need it. You both have issues.
And you're consciously or subconsciously, one way or another.
Not that we're making excuses for him here. This is just everybody's.
You're also
contributes.
Damaging the children. Remove them from that situation.
Exactly.
And goddamn remove yourself.
Yeah.
He's going to implode, and don't go down with him.
No, absolutely. So at one point here, February 2000, still with WCW, he's leaving the U.S. for Germany. He got on a plane, and they said he looked terrible, looked like he's been up for days drinking, ended up getting sick on the plane. And the first night of the tour, he was in no condition to perform, they said. He was a mess. But anyway, he went out anyway, and he did his match here. And so he was apparently, during the whole European tour, it was said that he was barely functional every night, but he still went out and wrestled. He had incidents in bars, they said, every night where he was trying to fight people. He threw a cake at his girlfriend at one point at a bar.
She's supposed to come out of that.
Yeah, well, that's no. She was wearing it rather than it wearing her. So she said when he got home to go to the airport, that they wouldn't let him off the plane because he had been such a disturbance on the plane. And we have another plane incident we'll talk about here.
Good Christ!
So they wouldn't let him get on the plane to come home. So he missed a Monday Nitro episode because he was stuck in Europe while everybody else came back, and he was supposed to be involved in an angle that got him in and he couldn't participate in it because he was stuck in Europe. But he would still be. He's still there, though. Yeah. That's the thing. He's still there. Problem is, there's a lot of shit that goes on now. Like, he says that, kind of joking around, he says that there's this angle in the ring where one of the Office guys is going to be in there, who's an ex-wrestler, Terry Taylor. He was the Red Rooster in WWF.
I don't remember.
Very embarrassing. Mm-hmm. He said that Scott Hall's supposed to, super embarrassing. The guy acted like a fucking rooster.
I do remember you talking about him.
The most embarrassing gimmick ever.
One, right?
Yeah, he had like a red robe, but he had like a red spiky stripe in his hair, and he would like do his head like a chicken neck it like he was a rooster. Like, do you think you're a rooster? I don't get it. As a child, I was like, I don't understand. Does this man believe he's a rooster, or what's happening now? Did he like get bit by a rooster? Some Spider-Man thing here?
I suspended disbelief to believe that this fight is real, but not that a man is half fucking rooster.
He's half rooster and fighting this other guy on television. I'd see if he was just a guy.
Right.
But a half rooster man? You can't find that and put it on television. Anyway, Hall says at this point he's supposed to hit Jeff Jarrett with a guitar for an angle, and he says, well, I'm going to hit the Office guy with the guitar instead. Not actually going to do it, joking around, but because WCW has been sued so much and they're so corporate, they fucking freak out.
Yeah.
And they suspend the whole thing and don't do the angle because they're afraid he'll actually do it, which is fucking stupid. It was dumb. Anyway, so He's having some problems here, and they're finally sick of him. He's been in so much shit, so much turmoil with alcohol,
pain in the ass stuff.
Yeah. He says later on that the European incident was what eventually gets him fired. He says that his girlfriend, the girlfriend he threw a cake at. This is a problem.
Yeah.
Not only did he throw a cake at his girlfriend, but that girlfriend happened to be the niece of TNT, the network the show was on, of the president of that company, Brad Siegel.
Oh, Jesus.
Happened to be, he was like the boss of WCW at that time, happened to be her niece who he was hanging out with and going out with. He had cheated on her, and then they got in a big fight, so he threw a cake on her, and that fouled up his employment a little bit, soured him with his employer there.
You're going to date a rich and powerful man's relative? You treat her really
especially if
great.
You work for that man.
Yeah.
Not if he works for that guy. This guy's directly responsible for your contract, though, which would probably be nice.
You don't fuck up your future earnings, you dipshit.
Well, instead, he gets released. He's released by WCW, so he goes from being the hottest thing in the world to now they don't even fucking want him anymore. April of 2000, Scott and Dana break up again. No surprise there.
She found out about the cake girl.
Yeah, he had a goddamn girlfriend over there. Now, October. This is weird here. They get into some drama here in 2000. Scott asked in October. There's supposed to be a court hearing, and Scott on October 19th. Scott asked Dana for another reconciliation before this. Dana told him she'd be willing to discuss it. Jesus Christ! And they had a lunch meeting scheduled, and then it ended up getting canceled. And they made more plans on the 23rd to meet, but Scott never showed up
because he was drunk.
Because he's probably drunk. Right. Scott's lawyer, requested that they attend mediation sessions, and Dana then he sued her or filed something into the divorce court, and she is cited with 2 contempt of court charges for refusing Scott visitation because he's supposed to get visitation, but she thinks he's drunk and won't let him see the kids. It's a fucking mess. Family members, she brings in friends and family members that claim Hall had been drinking during visitation with his children on July 28th, and ended up skidding off a road with them and nearly hitting a pole.
Jesus.
So that's what she says.
He's got the kids in the car with him now.
Well, that's what she says, yeah. And she says, quote, "Where is the bottom? He has the gall to call me unfit and all that stuff, and I don't even have a parking ticket. It's ridiculous that he thinks he can do things like that and continue to hurt people who love him the most. Somebody needs to show him what the word denial means in the dictionary." Somebody needs to show both of you.
Yeah.
Let's sit you down with a dictionary, both of you. We'll look at denial and alcoholic and codependent, and we'll all talk about it.
And not just codependent, but clearly enabler, because she's bringing him back around and giving him 0 consequences for his shit behavior.
Because she's codependent. She can't. So it's a mess. They're both a mess. Him more, obviously. He's causing all of this. He just wasn't drinking. Everything would be fine. But his things are snowballing this. We're not meaning to blame her for his problems, because these are clearly all his.
But she sounds like an asshole.
But she's not. She's not. I don't even know if it's an asshole, but they're not a good combination.
No,
that's
there
the thing.
You go.
They're bad together.
Yes.
So in 2000, he ends up heading over to New Japan Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling here, and he does some shit over there. They do it's kind of a Japanese NWO angle they have over there, because they were at one point kind of in business with WCW and exported that over there, and long story. So anyway, he's pretty popular over there. Everybody liked him because the Japanese fans, if you bring a famous American wrestler over there, they go batshit for it, because it's an island over there. It's a small place. So when you bring things in from the outside, they get excited. Yeah. It's like Australia. Hi, Australia. TV, right. Yeah. Australia, the people come there and they'll pay I bought a t-shirt for $20. It was $35 shipping, but that's what you expect. I'm on a fucking island out here.
That's what you expect. And you're right.
Yeah.
That's how they live it.
People weren't complaining at all that shipping on t-shirts was so expensive. And that's what it costs to ship something across the world. Sorry. Across oceans.
We get it.
Yeah, it's fine. So October 26th, 2000, Seminole County Courthouse. Yeah. It's a custody hearing for the kids with Dana, obviously. Yeah. It's called by Scott. He's the one who called this whole thing into action. He's attending the visitation hearing and ends up being taken out in handcuffs after he discovered that he had violated a probation given to him for the arrest in October, the groping incident.
Yeah.
So, the limousine incident.
Okay, the key.
So
right.
he had violated that, and he said at a recent hearing, though, he had agreed to Dana's request that he pay for counseling and pay for counseling for the children, and Dana will continue to pay for her own counseling, and he also said he would provide health insurance for the kids at that point. And the ruling decreed that the Halls had to meet in a neutral place when they exchanged the children, and Scott also agreed not to drink or consume drugs in front of the children and signed a written statement that there would be no further offenses, and his visitation rights at that point were canceled until further review.
Okay.
So, what a mess. November of 2000, he makes a few little appearances in ECW, and they're very dying days. That is the very end. But he has no contract. He's just making one-off appearances there, trying to keep his name kind of in the mix. At this point, too, Kevin Nash is basically on television this whole time talking about Scott Hall. Oh. Kevin Nash is getting in trouble from WCW for talking about Scott Hall.
Really?
Yeah, because he's saying we should, Scott Hall needs to be here. Where's Scott Hall?
Oh.
And they're like, shut the fuck up. We fired Scott Hall. Don't talk about him.
Stop stumping for him.
He kept doing it anyway. He did a little thing with him and Diamond Dallas Page where they were on TV going, we want Scott Hall back. DDP jumped in the thing too.
Boy.
So Dana releases a statement.
Yeah.
This is a long one and a rough one. And, I'll read it here. She says, quote, "It is a shame that these so-called friends of Scott would persist in urging fans to get Scott to return. It's only cruel of them to give the fans false hope and not to mention Scott. Obviously, these men do not know all the facts or understand the seriousness of his most recent arrest. Obviously, they do not wish to acknowledge that Scott did not start drinking because he lost his job, but lost his job because of his addiction. He didn't start drinking after our divorce, but we divorced because of his addictions and infidelities. They obviously do not understand or care that their friend and my husband, the father of our children, is on a very self-destructive path and is in need of help from his friends, not urgings to return or even believe that he can return, which has contributed to further destroy his marriage, our family, and his life." Yeah. And she goes on. She says, "This is not what a friend does. These kinds of friends have done more damage than they've helped." So, yeah, she's
with friends
pissed.
like these.
With friends like these, are trying to get him his job. Now, meanwhile, he has no fucking job, which is also an issue too.
Yeah.
Drunk or not,
you need gainful employment.
You need to fucking pay the mortgage. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, November 22nd, 2000. This is the DUI here. He has there that we talked about. Now he ends up at this point being signed by WCW or by WWE at this point. I think it's WWE now. Yeah, they had changed. No, they was still WWF in 2000. Or 2002 when he comes in. They bring him in to do a repackaged NWO with Hulk. They bring in Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall. They're like, hey, remember this from 5 years ago? They bring that in.
It's like the third Austin Powers. We get it.
Hall had a little feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin, which was a big deal. They fought each other in WrestleMania 18, which is a big deal here. Austin won that match on March 25th. He was a big part of that show to go to Raw, Monday Night Raw. He's in WWF for a little while, and then he has a problem. There's this thing. It's known in the wrestling parlance here as the plane ride from hell, where a bunch of people lost their jobs because wrestlers went batshit on a chartered flight coming home from a European tour.
Awesome.
Okay. We'll let the people who are there tell it here. A guy, Just Incredible, who's a wrestler who's been all over the place. He says Vince at the time was chartering flights. We weren't on commercial flights. We'd rent the whole plane. We had a 747 all ours, meaning not only all the wrestlers, but also the TV crew. He said, so we have every cameraman, all the girls that make the costumes, tour managers, everybody, a plane full of WWE people.
Fuck.
Now that comes, and I bet you Vince has not done it since, with a full and open bar.
Oh, no.
And what I mean by that is a plane filled with alcoholic wrestlers at the end of a grueling tour. So think about it. it. It's like the last day of school. Now, Sean Waltman here, X-Pac, he says, quote, it was brewing. Everybody had their different little deals that they were doing. Some people were doing GHB, getting pilled up, whatever. You could buy GHB in the health food store. It was legal, so that was the reason everybody was doing it. But it fucked you up, he says, with ellipses in between each one. He said, events started out more or less, I guess the shit started out innocently. I guess Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall, old tag team partners there, they got a hold of some shaving cream canisters, and they were running around just fucking with people, squirting shaving cream at them and shit like that. Just kid shit, basically.
Running around an airplane.
An airplane, mind you. Now, I guess Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar, who he's famous for multiple reasons for now.
All kinds of stuff.
They knew each other. They both were from Minnesota. They both knew each other. They were hanging out there. And I guess they got restless and they started to do kind of amateur wrestling takedowns on each other.
On a
fucking airplane.
What the fuck?
One guy's 250, the other guy's 300 pounds on a fucking airplane.
You can break a window with that kind of weight.
So Sean Waltman says Kurt insisted that he was a better grappler than Brock.
Oh my God.
Which is crazy because Kurt was just good at a lot of shit and he thought he was good. So Waltman said Kurt was always real competitive, him and Brock, we all hung around out because we lived in Minnesota. So Just Incredible says they weren't fighting at first, but they were very competitive, so they're just scrapping along, like messing around. Then something happened where it got serious. It didn't come to blows, but the opening they have on planes? Those openings are the emergency exit rows. Now, Brock's a wrestling shooter and Kurt's a shooter kind of too, so they took it seriously. They didn't want to give in to each other, so they went at it really hard. Lesnar shot in and drove Hennig so hard into the side that they almost popped open the emergency exit 30,000 feet in the air.
Oh my God.
People had to separate them.
Yeah.
So Sean,
you fucking dicks, you're about to leave the
kill
plane.
us all. So Sean Waltman said, obviously WWE made a big WWE management made a big deal out of it. The fucking door. It's impossible for it to open at that altitude, so it was real stupid. The flight before, Vince and Kurt Angle had a takedown tournament in the aisle. But as soon as it happened with Hennig and Lesnar, they made a big deal out of it. Then fucking Flair comes out in his robe. Okay. Just Incredible says, with nothing on underneath, which is Flair's move. He always did that at bars. Waltman says, fucking balls naked, strutting down the aisleway. Back to Credible. 60-year-old man, junk flying everywhere, going up to stewardesses, flashing his wide open robe and going, come on, sweetheart. Woo! So, this is fucking, these poor women trapped on this fucking plane. These flight attendants, Jesus Christ, can you imagine?
Nobody sued.
Oh, we'll get to that. People sued. The flight attendants, Tara Lynn.
Pulling a whole Louis C.K.
Oh yeah, worse than that. Those were at least comedians.
Yeah.
These are flight attendants. If you're, not that anyone should show you your dick, but if you're signing up for comedy, your life's going to be hard. You know that bad things are.
It's going to be
Flight
terrible.
attendant, you expect people to be polite to you and you serve them a drink. You don't expect fucking wrestlers to whip their cocks out.
Screaming woo.
Gee, that makes it worse. The flight attendants, Tarolyn Capilano and Heidi Doyle, they compiled their allegations and put together a big lawsuit. Good for them. They said that it was Flair's sexual aggression. They said he wore nothing but a jeweled cape, which sounds worse than a robe. He wore a jeweled cape and opened it up and said, woo. That sounds really like it's a real...
Right after Come On, Sweetheart.
Come on, sweetheart. It sounds like it's like a whole thing that he put together with a jeweled cape, and it's like a really... It's almost honorable. The flight attendant said he, quote, flashed his nakedness, quote, spinning his penis around, which is fucking amazing.
Helicopter.
Jesus. He separately grabbed each woman's hand and placed it on his crotch and then forcibly detained and restrained Doyle, Heidi Doyle, from leaving the back of the galley of the airplane while he sexually assaulted her. Flair denies this.
Yeah, of course.
But the WWE settled out of court with both women.
There you go.
Yeah. And then also...
Was that shit in that new Flair documentary? I wonder.
No, it's odd, right? Nothing's ever in these fluff pieces. Another lawsuit, in this lawsuit, they implicated that Dustin Rhodes, who was Gold Dust, Dusty's kid there, said to a flight attendant, quote, you and me are going to fuck. And then Dustin took over the PA system.
Oh my God!
And was singing a slurred serenade to his ex-wife who was there, Terry Runnels. You might remember her. And then, eventually Jim Ross had to come in and fucking shut all this shit down and go, okay, everybody stop. We got wrestling and all this shit.
Yeah, wrestling. We got his dick out. This guy's singing drunkenly over the PA.
Apparently Scott Hall was out cold most of this flight. This didn't have a lot to hear. Even Jim Ross said that Hall wasn't one of the instigators or anything like that. But he had the shaving cream and all that sort of shit. But that's all the wrestlers said. But the flight attendants have a different story in the lawsuits. The Doyle attendant said that Hall slobbered on her face before telling her he wanted to, quote, lick her pussy. He then told Capilano to, quote, suck his dick. Then he passed out. Said, I'm going to lick your pussy, suck my dick, and then passed out cold.
That is awesome.
And they said people were checking his pulse to see if he was still alive. That's how deeply he was sleeping.
Even if she wanted it, like he couldn't do it.
Just Incredible said you had Scott Hall out of his mind, completely out of his mind, shimmying and shaking. I had to babysit Scott. I had to stay straight because everyone else was so fucked up.
My God.
So apparently they got to the airport at JFK and they had a wheelchair rolling him out. He was non-responsive, Scott Hall. He's just passed out in a giant guy in a wheelchair. And, it was a fucking mess.
I guess it's a good thing she didn't want her pussy licked.
Yeah, I guess she didn't, he's happy she didn't say, okay, can you fit in the bathroom? So, also Michael Hayes, if you don't know who he is a fabulous Freebird guy, real obnoxious asshole. Apparently nobody liked him. And, basically he was being a dick to, JBL, who was one of the Cowboy guys. Okay. And, he like knocked him in the forehead where he had a cut from a match and it opened up as the cut. This JBL, he's bleeding all over his suit. So this JBL laid him out, fucking knocked him out. While he was on the ground, somebody, cut off his mullet. They chopped off his mullet. They chopped off his ponytail. And
this is like an extreme version of Jackass 4.
It's insane. With death possible, falling from 35,000 feet. So they cut off his ponytail. Apparently he didn't notice it till he went through customs coming back that his hair was gone.
Anything to declare? Where's my hair?
Yes, this pony. Huh? Wait, I thought I had a mullet to declare. Apparently not. He was all pissed off, and I guess it was Waltman that cut his hair off.
Really?
Yeah. No one told on him though.
Wow.
Because everyone hated him.
How about that?
WWE response to this official response, silver-haired middle-aged white man official response to this is, quote, the flight was about 7 hours in length and at times was low-lighted by a handful of people who consumed too much alcohol and consequently acted like children whose parents were away and left the liquor cabinet unlocked. The conduct of this inebriated minority was unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Procedures have been put in place to ensure such conduct does not occur in the future.
That sounds...
It's a brush over.
Low-lighted, James. It was low-lighted by toddlers, and then they said by this minority, making like they're trying to brush it under the rug.
Flair helicoptered his cock.
Yeah.
That's a different story there. So
a drunken, slovenly man who was about to pass out for the remainder of this flight threatened, not just asked for, threatened to
that's a threat at that point.
Against her will.
That's a threat.
Yeah.
He didn't say, would you like me to?
No.
He said, which is still pretty weird.
Right.
He said, I'm going to, which is... sounds like a threat. Wow.
Unbelievable.
They ended up
me and you are gonna fuck.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's crucial.
They hold Kurt Hennig responsible. They end up firing him for this. Not Brock Lesnar, though, even though they were wrestling in the same amount. This is what I mean. They always pick who the lesser they can, and they make an example out of that guy. Wow. Great example. And they get rid of Gold Dust. They shit can him also. And then ended up also Scott Hall ends up getting shit canned too. His release was announced days later, and so they said that he couldn't make appearances. They said several wrestlers complained about Hall's attitude toward the company beginning in early April. They also said that he'd been binge drinking, showing up to as many as 4 April shows under the influence. I guess at the London pay-per-view there, he showed up under the influence after 2 days of drinking. At one point, fell asleep while the pay-per-view was occurring, then showed up at WWE Raw 2 nights later under the influence, although he sobered up by the time the show began. And so they're talking about that. He also appeared in 2 consecutive shows intoxicated, and there was a lot of people in the locker room that were pissed off at him for acting like that, and they wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors. So he signs with TNA, which is the other shit fucking wrestling.
It's a lady that runs that.
Yeah,
right?
Dixie Carter. It's just terrible. It's just awful. By the way, Sean Waltman said he posted the ponytail on the wall at the TV taping the next day. He stapled it up there. So we don't need to talk too much about Scott Hall, about TNA, honestly. He comes in. They make a big deal out of him because, he's a star and they suck. So he comes in right in the beginning, though, in 2002. He's there till about 2005. And he kind of, he ends up leaving TNA in 2005 and kind of goes under the radar for a while again. 2007, he pops up in Puerto Rico again for WWC, wrestling as Razor Ramon, but he's wearing a Wolfpack outfit.
What?
So he's wearing an NWO outfit going as Razor Ramon, which makes no sense. Sounds like he was drunk and he got he got dressed hammered. So he wrestles there for a little while, fucks around in Puerto Rico. He had a problem. He no-showed an appearance in Puerto Rico for a couple days straight and ended up leaving there. Apparently, he said he had family issues that he needed to take care of. He comes back in 2007 to TNA for a little while, ends up on the indie circuit, ends up appearing in Juggalo Championship Wrestling in 2007, and was a member of the Juggalo World Order.
Jesus.
So he teamed up with one of the ICP guys to beat some other guys that I've never heard of.
Oh, boy.
And,
Feels like that'd be Violent J that would do that.
He was the one wrestling. It was Violent J. Yeah, I don't know the difference.
How can I make that guess? That is that is embarrassing.
So
spraying Faygo all over the crowd.
Terrible.
I can already see it.
Oh, you know
what's happening. What happened.
So
that's terrible.
2008, there's a company called Kayfabe Commentaries who, by the way, if you're like wrestling stuff, they are the kind of the gold standard for wrestling shit. If you want to see an interview, you want to see their interviews. The rest of them are kind of done. They're kind of done with a camcorder in like a broom closet, where it looks like the wrestler may or may not be there against his will. It's possible that this might be a court-ordered appearance, whereas these ones, for Kayfabe Commentaries, the guys actually look like they're there on purpose.
Got it.
They weren't like ambushed with a camera they weren't expecting it or anything. And they do a really, really, really good job with all this shit. Very thorough, and they have a good sense of humor. So there's a smart guys that put out a good product if you like that sort of shit. Well, they have a bunch of different products, a bunch of different lines of videos, and one of them they were doing for a while was they were doing wrestler roasts, where they get a bunch of wrestlers and some comedians and they would roast a certain wrestler. And the first one was the Iron Sheik roast, which if you're going to roast somebody in 2008,
so easy.
The Sheik is the guy to do because he was really famous at that point too. So this is at the Crown Plaza Hotel too in New Jersey. It's in a nice hotel. They were trying to do a classy thing, as classy as you can have for a wrestling event. Anyway, there's a comedian there named Jimmie Graham. I don't know who he is. He's an East Coast guy. And I don't think he's successful or anything like that, but he made a joke during the roast, which he says, quote, this is referring to the Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan getting arrested together at one point. They got arrested for drugs together when they were supposed to be feuding. So that was bad. He says, quote, after the Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan got caught snorting coke in the parking lot, his career fell faster than Owen Hart.
Oh, boy.
Which is a rough joke.
That is fantastic.
But it's a good joke, too, at the same time. Well, while this was happening, Scott Hall, who wasn't invited to this roast, had just wandered in because there was a wrestling convention in town. He wandered in, hammered, shit-faced drunk, and making a scene while people were trying to do their shit. So if you're a comedian and you're at the dais and you're trying to do jokes about the Iron Sheik, and fucking Scott Hall walks in, this giant drunken monster, that's a rough situation because he's not a regular heckler that you can just fucking rip up. He's going to come, the fans know who he is. They see him and they start chanting razor, razor, razor. And he's crotch chopping and doing all that shit. And the guy's making jokes and he's going, real funny, asshole. Yeah. He's doing all that sort of shit.
Don't do that.
Yeah. Don't quit your day job, jerk off. He's literally,
Ramon was saying
he's saying that to the comedians who are up there trying to do their fucking job.
I never heard of you.
Yeah. I never heard of you. Yeah. That's why you don't have a career. Shit like that, right?
Oh, boy.
So anyway, he says this joke, and by the way, during all this, the guy who was running this show, the Sean Oliver, who's the host of all this and one of the owners of Kayfabe Commentaries. By the way, I read this in a book that he wrote that I had to read for this, and it's fucking good, actually, really good. A lot of good stories. Yeah.
Right.
Guy's pretty funny. It was a good time. Good job, Sean Oliver. So, anyway, they talk about basically this poor bastard has to he's running up to Scott Hall with with a release at this point. Sign a release if you're going to do this at least. Jesus Christ. Be on my video then if you're going to fucking ruin it. At least. So he said, why don't you go up and do a set? You're here. Go do a fucking set. If you want to talk, there's a microphone. Go fucking talk. Stop ruining shit. So you know what Scott Hall's answer was?
What?
I don't know the Sheik.
Oh,
what the fuck are you here for then?
Why
Get
did
out.
you walk in here?
Get out. I don't know the Sheik. So he's like, great. So instead, Scott Hall just decides to disrupt shit from the back of the room more and keep going and keep going. So eventually the Owen Hart joke comes out. Scott Hall then takes this opportunity to be offended. And as the Sean Oliver put it, he found his opportunity to be offended because he was looking for one. Yeah. He rushes the fucking stage and chokes this guy up against the fucking back wall. Giant dude choking this fucking comedian up against the back wall.
Where the fuck is that video?
It's out there. It's out there. Oh, fuck yeah, it's on YouTube.
Oh, my God.
You can see any of this shit. Yeah.
I see all these open micer gets assaulted.
Fuck
I want
that. This is a monster, out of control drunk fucking choking a guy. They pull him apart off of him. The comedian goes his separate way. Then he grabs the mic and starts saying stupid shit. He says, everybody pray and tell God to say hi to Owen Hart and shit like that, weird shit. Ugh. He's all drunk and trying to be emotional. Say hi to Owen, which is the stupidest thing ever. He's saying it was so disrespectful. At this point, Jim Powers, who's another wrestler from the 80s, WWF, one of the young stallion guys there, I guess he was hanging out with Scott Hall, and Scott Hall had been getting fucked up in his room.
Oh, my God.
So now this guy, another wrestler, is trying to physically pick Scott up and carry him the fuck out of here to keep him from getting arrested. Because at one point, the video people are like, just call the fucking cops. Fuck this guy.
We need bullets.
And this isn't the only time this has happened. At one point, he attacked a guy named Rob Feinstein, who does shoot interviews of a lesser quality RF video. He was supposed to have an interview with him, and I guess he was super fucked up and just attacked him. The guy said he pinned him up against a window on a 10th story of a hotel. He thought he was going to shove him out the window.
This guy's a father.
He's a fucking lunatic, and I guess X-Pac came in and talked him off of him and saved the guy's life, basically.
X-Pac is always there in the corner just waiting.
But that Rob, he's hanging out. But that Rob Feinstein, you know what, maybe it wasn't so bad because he was actually confronted by Chris Hansen on an episode of To Catch a Predator.
No.
He never got charged with anything, so we don't know what he was doing, allegedly, but he definitely
showed up to a house.
There's footage of him showing up to a house with Chris Hansen going, how's it going there, pal? Or whatever he says to him. So maybe he needed to get shot.
Have a seat.
Have a seat,
buddy.
Let's
have a talk. I just want to talk to you.
Allegedly.
There's the most uncomfortable videos.
Yeah,
that
God.
My favorite heckling video is the one of the guitar comic in Texas or something.
Oh, yeah, when he just smashes the guy in the fucking head, goes off.
And then he goes, he provoked it, right,
guys? Right,
and
everybody?
And the crowd's like, no!
I'm like, I'm on your side, pal. I'm totally on his side.
But the crowd just turns on him. He goes, fuck this shit, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Fuck you people. So, Jesus.
So good.
2010, they brought Hulk Hogan in to kind of help run things. You remember they had billboards up in Times Square of TNA. TNA is gonna, now we're gonna do something.
What year is this?
2010.
Okay, I'm gone from it by then.
Oh, I was way out, but it was in the mainstream news that Hulk Hogan was doing interviews everywhere saying that
before his kid killed somebody.
This is right afterwards. Okay. But anyway, Scott Hall comes back to this whole thing and ends up being fired pretty quickly.
Okay.
So he does some indie shit around then in 2010. And May 3rd, he does an indie promotion gig. And May 14th, 2010, authorities are called to the Hitching Post Bar in Chulada, Florida. I don't know where the fuck that is. Chulada. At 1:40 a.m. After Hall, who'd been drinking heavily, became aggressive, pushed a customer, argued with the female bartender, and also the bartender's father, who was the owner of the restaurant, of the bar. After the bartender lined up a ride home for Scott Hall, this is how even after his belligerent behavior, they tried to get him a ride home. He instead punched out the window of the car and pushed two female patrons who were standing near the car.
Jesus.
So authorities arrived. They found him yelling and cursing at other wrestlers, at the bar staff, at everybody that was around. Intoxicated, slurring speech, had bloodshot eyes.
Sweet Pete.
He was told he was being taken into custody. He refused to comply, and the deputy had to forcibly put handcuffs on him, which doesn't sound fun.
Nope.
It It said, quote, the police report said, quote, Scott refusing this directive and instead thrust out his chest, walking closer to me, stating, I ain't going down for this shit. This is bullshit. You know it's bullshit. Goes on to say that Hall continued to refuse, but the deputy managed to secure his left wrist in a handcuff and then pulled his arm behind him. He said in the report, quote, due to Scott's inordinate size, which is at this point 6'5", 295 pounds, I utilized 2 sets of handcuffs in tandem, which you would have to. He was taken.
It's a 50-year-old man, James.
That's what I mean. This is an old man. He shouldn't be doing this.
Bad.
Get it together. He was taken to the Seminole jail and issued a trespass warning to forbid him from ever returning to that bar. In the police report, he listed himself as unemployed, even though this was like a week before he got released from TNA. Okay. So
he knew.
He knew. Well, he didn't.
I'm about to be fired.
I think he said, if I put TNA on here, that's going to get a red flag, and TMZ will see it sooner.
Right.
I think that's what he probably.
I'll bet you're right.
Which was actually smart because he knows. After he's released from TNA, he's checked into a WWE sponsored rehab.
Okay.
We've talked about this. WWE as a thing because, all these people die because they fucking didn't do anything to help them. So now they send out letters to everybody saying, we'll pay for whatever rehab you need up to a point.
Right.
Scott Hall is one of the people that they really, really spent a lot on because he was a major star for them. A lot of other people, they're like Sonny, they were like, I don't know, you had a couple runs. I don't know what to tell you. Go to the shithole place, whatever. Stephanie McMahon said, quote, without giving too many particulars, it's in the 6 figures for how much money we spent sending Scott to rehab. It's the most amount of money we've ever spent on anyone for treatment.
What do you think it is? 800?
I can't imagine.
You think it's that high?
They sent him like a dozen times. So
it's probably in 200.
No, yeah, it's got to be super expensive. And this is all from the ESPN E60 documentary they did on Scott Hall in 2011. They did this little mini 18-minute documentary on him. Scott says, quote, there's got to be some reason that I'm still here. I should have been dead 100 times. Truer words never been spoken. So he ends up going to rehab for that, checking out a rehab in early October 2010. He, at this point, has a defibrillator and a pacemaker put in his heart because he's having health problems. He's also hospitalized for double pneumonia in 2010. And at this point, like during the documentary in 2011, he takes 11 medications every day. He lined up all his pill bottles, and it's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. November 2010, he appears at a wrestling show. So he does that. January 8th, 2011, he makes an appearance at a show called I Believe in Wrestling in Orlando, and talked about his health in front to the crowd. March 7th, 2011, he is sentenced to 3 months probation, stemming from the disorderly intoxication and conduct and resisting the officer at the bar there.
You should thank his lucky stars he's a white guy, not a black guy.
Who would have been
black
shot.
Guy, 6'5",
punching out windows.
I ain't going down for this shit.
Swinging their arms around.
Bullshit. I'll give you bullshit.
Ooh, yeah, you'd end up with a fucking clip in you, I would imagine. Especially in Florida.
Yeah.
So May 14th, 2010, here, that is the one where he was, that's what he's arrested for, or that's what he's sentenced for.
Put your phones down, by the way. James knows it's a magazine.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
I know my phone's about to start alerting.
Yeah.
James doesn't know that it's a magazine. He knows.
Yeah, shut up. Fuck yourself.
James is a gangster, that's all.
God damn it. So, WrestleMania 2011, Shawn Michaels is being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and everybody thinks that Scott Hall is going to show up because he's one of his buddies. Hall puts out a statement saying that he will not attend. He says, I want to announce right now that I wanted to be in Atlanta to see Shawn Michaels get inducted into the Hall of Fame, but I had to change my mind because I'm not strong enough to be in that situation right now. All I wanted to be was around my old buddies in Atlanta where we were over like Rover with the NWO stuff. Such a fun city. But being with the boys is such a heavy trigger for me to party like that. I'm not ready for that atmosphere. I'm just going to sit at home and watch it on pay-per-view. Yeah. Healthy.
Over like Rover, James.
Over like Rover. April 7th, 2011, he's hospitalized. Oh, no. There's rumors of a seizure, rumors of an OD, all sorts of rumors. We don't know exactly why he's hospitalized.
A lot of times you have a seizure when you
that happens. So yeah, that's what I mean, especially with all these different medications, and you don't know how medications react.
It doesn't necessarily have to be coke or heroin.
He says, though, that he will be at the event the next day that he's supposed to be at. Okay. He says that the fans bought tickets. They're going to get their money's worth. He said, whatever. He's going to do this shit. April 8th, 2011, he's slated to appear in the main event for an indie show in Fall River, Massachusetts. He gets released from the hospital. He pops out. Now, this is what the promoter said. Quote, he got off the plane in a wheelchair, and the first thing he said was, I want my money. I knew we were in a world of hurt at that point. He comes out. Okay, they announce him. He peeks through this little curtain. He comes out. He can't walk. He takes like 2 baby steps, and he's trying to do crotch chop, but he can't even lift his arms and up and down. He's still got a hospital wristband on. He's so fucked up he can't move. He can't even make the little like wolf pack sign with his fingers. He's so fucked up. They take him to the ring. 2 assholes from the promotion on either side of him carry him out to the ring.
Why are they doing this?
To let him talk in the fucking ring. And then after that, they go through with the angle they were going to do where somebody hits him and he falls down. He's fucking hammered. He could have fallen, broken his fucking neck.
Oh, my God.
At that point, they have him act like he's hitting a guy in slow motion. They have him like act like he's hitting a guy with a fucking chair.
Is this shit on YouTube?
Oh, it's on YouTube.
Oh, my
it's absolutely on. It's on the ESPN for crying. It was on ES fucking PN. It's fucking insane, man. He gets all angry with the crowd. They get angry with him for this whole thing. Justin Credible was there again. He said it was horrifying and very sad. X-Pac, they talked to this interview with him, and he's like, he was pissed at these promoters for doing it.
Of course, X-Pac.
And I agree.
Yeah.
What kind of a piece of, these are the same fucking people that shove Pablo Francisco out on a fucking stage and he can't talk. It's the same. This is this is why I say comedy and wrestling are the same thing. They're like, well, we sold tickets tonight. If we get rid of him, if we tell him he can't go out, then we have to return all this money. Or we can just shove him out there and then it's on him. Then we can just blame him for it rather than having some fucking, when you book Scott Hall, you take a fucking risk that you might have to return all those people's money. That's the risk of booking him. He's going to be a draw. People want to see him, but he might not show up or he might show up not ready to go. Same thing as you book Pablo. He might be great and people might come to see him or he might fall off the fucking stage.
It's going to be bad.
But you booked him. It's your fucking responsibility. So I hate this shit. The same way I hated that they left Pablo out there. Didn't shut his fucking mic off. Let him embarrass himself.
Just let him drown. And that's maybe that might be the saddest. I've seen a lot of bad open mic, sad comedy.
This is the same. Watch this video. It reminds you of that so much. It's so it's so sad. You just want to save the guy. After that, he is checked into a hospital in Rhode Island. He is treated for an overdose of opiates and benzodiazepine. What the fuck is that?
Zepidine?
Yeah. Benny's is what he's got. So anyway, Hall, his representatives there, they said that it was untrue and fabricated. He's fine. He's not sick. He visits his doctor regularly, and that's what the deal was. He wasn't in the hospital the day before. They said that he was in the hospital for low blood pressure and a change in blood pressure medication. He never overdosed. All that kind of shit.
What the fuck is he overdosed? What?
He's fine.
What is too much in him?
Yeah, there's something too much or not enough in this motherfucker. April 11th, 2011, the promotion that put on that show, they released a statement saying that he arrived the day of the event in a wheelchair with 3 bottles of prescription pills in his possession, and through the following day, he showed that he showed up in that state. He was demanding his appearance fee, even though he already had been paid. He made threats to the staff and made demands about money and when he would perform. Hall was screaming that he would kill him if he fucked him over. So it's that sort of thing. So they just put him out there. Ridiculous. Kevin Nash released a statement on Tumblr like a 14-year-old girl for some reason.
In what year? 2010?
2011.
Oh, this is early.
Yeah, he's like a 14-year-old girl.
First one.
It was him and his daughter, and he said, Scott Hall's in bad shape, and each time I talk to him, I feel as if it may be the last. It's gotten to the point where I save his voicemails because I know sometimes I heard this message, it could be his last.
He's that friend.
He's that friend that you're worried about like that.
Everybody's got that friend. That's his.
Yep. He said, nobody has, it's a fucking mess, man. Kevin Nash said, nobody knows what Scott has gone through since early childhood to this point except for me. I can tell you Scott Hall has neither a drug or alcohol addiction. What? Scott's problem is that he suffers suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Drugs and alcohol aren't the problem. To Scott, they're the solution. He is a fragile and broken human being, not a racehorse that you can whip to perform.
Is Kevin Nash saying that murdering that man in that parking lot?
That's what Scott Hall says too.
Really?
Scott Hall says that's the
catalyst.
That's the catalyst for all this, is the murder that made him. That was the
self-defense murder.
That's self-defense murder. Yeah, they said that's PTSD, and that's what he's been diagnosed with now, and that's what he's been trying to help. Now, also genetically, all of his family are alcoholics. So,
right. But here's the thing about that: the second that the state and second that law enforcement absolves you of all wrongdoing in that case, what the fuck would you have to feel?
You had skull on your face and brain particles. That could be traumatic. I could see that. But if it's
not your fault,
I could still see
it. To defend yourself.
I
can't know. See. I mean, I guess war too.
It's
they got PTSD.
Thing. Yeah, I don't think they have guilt over it as much as just you see horrible shit and it sticks in your head and you can't get rid of it.
I think their guilt is that their friends are dead and they're alive.
Yeah,
whereas
that's
this
exactly
everybody's alive.
Well, a lot of his friends are dead. A bunch of his friends are dead, but not from
that situation.
Yeah, not from a very self-inflicted situation with these people.
I get PTSD though.
Yeah.
I understand
no, it's true.
That a lot of things can make it happen.
I've never shot someone in point blank range with a 45, so I don't know what that's like.
I pulled a 45 on somebody and was completely willing to shoot the man because they were
if you
about
barn doored the back of his head, we could talk about what it felt like.
That's a great point. I almost did.
Almost happens. So May 8, 2011, he's on a phone conversation with his ex-wife, Dana. He reportedly came to terms with the fact that he doesn't have long to live at this point in this conversation, and he hung up on her. Hung up abruptly. She alerted the authorities and told them to go to his house and meet them at his house, and she'd go there too. Yeah. She said, quote, "I could barely understand him, but finally heard him say that he was sorry for his behavior, and after wrapping his head around it, he knew he was going to die and didn't have much time left and wanted me and the kids to be with him in the end." She said he sounded like he might be dying. I was freaking out because he sounded really bad.
Oh, Jesus.
So, of course, the cops get there and have a physical altercation with Scott, who doesn't want to be dealt with at that point. After this, Dana cuts off all ties with Scott and doesn't talk to him anymore.
Okay.
July 5th, 2011, he checks himself into rehab, or checks himself into jail, I'm sorry. He's ordered to serve 10 days in jail after the being found guilty of resisting arrest.
Yeah.
That was the bar incident there. He is, so this was for screaming at drunken people. October 2011 is when the ESPN documentary comes out on him. April 6, 2012, cops are called to his house over a domestic disturbance in progress. When they arrived, Scott's girlfriend, Lisa Howell, informed police that he had attacked her. She said he'd been drinking for days and they had gotten into some kind of argument. She says she got into the car and in a blind rage, Scott grabbed her by the throat and tried to pull her out of the driver's seat. The police confronted Scott, who appeared to be heavily intoxicated, quote, with unknown white secretion flowing from both sides of his mouth.
Ew.
I don't know what could be flowing.
Ew.
Not just sitting there, flowing. Not just a little spittle, flowing.
That word just incites so many questions.
Flowing.
Yeah.
So that's... Police observed several signs of physical injury on Lisa, including red marks around her neck, so they placed Scott under arrest for domestic battery. Again, 2 sets of handcuffs there.
Does he have rabies?
Maybe. At this point, who knows?
He could have been. His face.
I could see him fighting a raccoon for no reason, so it's possible. So Scott was so drunk that the jail refused to book him, so they had to take him to a hospital to get medical clearance first. Once they said he was okay, they booked him on a domestic violence charge. Lisa refused to press charges, though. She doesn't want to press charges. A few days later, on April 11th, he speaks out saying that the police overreacted. He never choked his girlfriend. His representative said Scott did not choke out his girlfriend, Lisa Howell. That's the quote there. Even though they saw multiple signs of injury that were consistent with her story, Scott's lawyer said the police arrested Mr. Hall against the wishes of Ms. Howell, who insisted that the argument did not result in violence, even though she fucking said it did. Ms. Howell claims that there was no physical abuse. Now, she refuses to press charges. It's in limbo. July 14th, 2012, he accompanies his son Cody for Cody's ring debut as a wrestler. Yes.
Cody Hall's a wrestler?
Cody Hall's a wrestler. He's kind of a big deal in Japan, actually.
Really?
Yep. He's doing pretty well, actually, over there. So good for Cody, I guess. 2013, finally, he is at rock fucking bottom. This is rock bottom. He's in wheelchairs. He can't walk. He can't do anything. He's a mess. Once he gets back from the ring with his son, he doesn't know what the fuck to do with himself. Yeah. And now he's got his son involved in this and the whole thing. And so he takes some time to himself, and he's just like goes outside for a minute, and he's standing by the dumpster out back, and he's just standing there, and there's nobody to talk to, and he's happy about that. He just wants some solitude. Then he hears some dogs barking, and he's very confused. And from around the dumpster comes Bobby Colorado, animal trainer from Fredericksburg, Texas, and he says, "How is it you come to arrive here? What the fuck is wrong? Now you got your kid here? What are you, fucking stupid? Let me ask you a question. You get into this shit, you knock your head around, you do stupid shit, you all do pills and drugs and you're doing all this shit. And now you're like, you know what would be good for my son? That's what I think I'm going to do, you dumb son of a bitch. You know all you do? You don't even deserve one of my dogs. You're fucking up with the kids so bad. What would you do with a fucking dog? You just leave it outside, it would fucking die. No, you can't even buy a dog from me. I won't even train your dog.
What's that white shit in your mouth? You already got rabies?
It's flowing from the sides of your mouth. The last time I saw that, I put a German Shepherd down because I had to. He couldn't be trained. You know what I'm saying? I gotta go. I got a poof. And then a poof of dog shit and marinara sauce. He's gone. And Scott is like, did I take that pill beforehand or not? Because shit.
Was that a red or a blue?
What the fuck am I doing? 2013, he moves in with Diamond Dallas Page.
Okay.
Does the same thing Jake did. Yeah. He is one of DDP's yoga. This is what I mean. It's nice that he's helping these people, but he's also using this to sell yoga. So it's like really weird. I'll say it now. They asked us to do an ad for DDP yoga when we were on another network, and we said no. So I'm like, no, I don't know. Well, they wanted us to do it. I'm like, I'm not fucking doing yoga. What do I look like?
We need you to allot some hours. Would you say hours?
Yeah, we're like, we don't have any hours to give you.
A couple of minutes to give you a couple poses.
What the fuck? You can take a picture of it if you want. So he moves in April. Moves in with DDP, and DDP is helping him greatly, though. He really is. He can barely walk due to arthritis. He needs a hip replacement, but he's unable to pay because he doesn't have any health insurance. Yeah. This is what I mean. These guys beat the shit out of themselves in these rings, and then they have no health insurance, and then the WWE goes, I don't know, if you get fucked up on drugs, let us know, we'll send you to rehab, but otherwise limp around, asshole.
You know, DDP is a brave dude to be doing this in the first place. Not just for, like, my point is that he's putting himself out there in terms of a lawsuit. Because he could be telling these guys, look, this could help. He may be having them sign something to be smart.
Because this is all on video, too. Yeah. None of this shit is done, like, in the privacy. This is all for promotional purposes.
Right. I know a dude, a very famous comedian that gave advice to a woman that was a cancer patient, gave her advice to do something opposite of what the doctors did. She died. He got sued like a motherfucker.
He probably shouldn't be giving medical advice as a comedian also. So she shouldn't be taking it either.
All his friends.
But he shouldn't be giving it.
All his friends said the same thing.
Yeah. Hey, dummy. What are you giving medical advice for? Why don't you go to medical school, stupid?
Well, he now needs a law degree because he's fucking paying through the nose.
Jesus. So DDP set up an Indiegogo campaign for him, and with 3 days left to run in the campaign, they raised $102,879, which is more than the $80,000 goal. More than 3,400 people chipped in to get Scott Hall hip surgery, and he gets hip surgery, and not too shabby here.
But now he's got pain pills.
Yeah, absolutely. He says, quote, a lot of things I'm not proud of and a lot of things I can't even remember doing, he says. He talks about drug and alcohol addictions. Basically, he says he's had a ton of concussions and drugs too, so he doesn't remember a lot of shit. He says, quote, sometimes I watch films of myself when I was younger and I don't even remember being there. It's pretty awful. He said that, Page has also helped him reconcile with his son a little bit, kind of being a middleman with his son. For years, he was barred from contact with his children because of Dana, because he was being a disaster. He says, Hall says, quote, she blamed the wrestling on the breakup of our marriage and the fact that I was a poor father for so many years. I was a rotten father. I know that. I hope I can make up for all those lost years. I'm a lot more focused as a human being right now. March 24th, 2014, he is inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame.
Wow.
They brought him back to do a little angle with Sting during WrestleMania. They made kind of a big deal about him. There are fluff pieces everywhere. Because DDP, if one thing he's a promoting son of a bitch. He's a hustler, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he hustles his product out there, and he'll promote it if somebody's doing well. He says, Scott Hall releases a statement at this point saying, quote, "To anyone that will listen, I honestly tell them that there are people that can help you. Find some professional that you can connect with and go for it. Ignoring the real problem, did not work for me, nor do I recommend it to anyone else. If you click with your therapist, then they can help you. I had the inability to ask for help when I needed it. People offered to help me, but I refused. They'd ask, 'How are you?' and I'd answer, 'Better than you.'" So that's pretty interesting.
That's a really great statement. That's actually the smartest thing he's ever said.
Well, he also says, "I finally had the courage and clarity to forgive myself. I had lied to myself for years. I couldn't keep a promise to myself. For instance, like saying, 'I'm not drinking today,' and a couple hours later, I'm drinking heavily. Forgiving myself is the best thing that happened to me," which makes fucking sense there. That's huge.
That's the first step is admitting and forgiving yourself for the mistakes.
Somebody's dead. He's got to deal with that. He's got to deal with the shit that he's done to his kids and his wife and himself. And I feel bad. I feel bad for all these people, Jimmy. But not nearly as bad as I feel for Scott Hall.
Jesus.
Artificial intelligence and machine learning in the enterprise in the greater New York City area. Scott Hall, alternative data founder of AltHub, whatever that is, strategy, sales development. Scott Hall, a sergeant in the Detroit Police Department.
Poor guy.
Poor bastard. Scott Hall, senior vice president for civic and community initiatives at Greater Kansas City of Commerce. Let's just leave it at that, because holy shit.
Professionals.
The Kansas City Chamber of Commerce and a police officer. He's good now, is what we're saying. 2014, like we said, he's the 7th and final inductee into that class of the Hall of Fame. They came out. Kevin Nash did the speech for him, inducted him. Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Sean Waltman joined him on stage, reuniting all their friends there. So it was a big deal they made out of that whole thing. May 13th, 2015, he signs with Jeff Jarrett's new promotion, Global Force Wrestling, which when he broke away from TNA, he started his own promotion here. That's May 13th. They said that he's going to be a part of the roster. Then on May 18th, he appeared intoxicated at an indie show, and he's fired from the new promotion. GFW. May 19th, 2015, he is he does a skate and surf festival weekend thing, where a bunch of old wrestlers are there. It's Tommy Dreamer, Sandman,
gross,
X-Pac, Scott Hall. Well, the problem is the TMZ posts a video of him drunk at the festival, Scott, calling out a wrestler for, quote, talking smack about his son, and his son wasn't even there. He eventually left ringside and did some crotch chops as they led him away from ringside. They cut several times showing him speaking with event staff and arguing with people. And they said that he was under the influence. The promotion would no longer do business with him until he gets his life in check. There's videos of him also with Coors Light and tequila from that time. The promoter said, quote, "He passed out 2 times and then pissed himself." We let him sleep.
That a quote?
That's a quote. Pissed himself. We let him sleep for 3 hours. When he woke up, he went to the bar again. Then we threw him out.
My Lord.
September 2016, he's at the TGIF in the Atlanta airport.
TGI Fridays.
TGI Fridays in the Atlanta airport.
Oh, God.
He admitted to an alcohol relapse after he's filmed in fighting with people in the bar, calling a bartender a bitch, and drinking tequila and Coors Light. He was asked to leave this whole deal here. He was drinking, and finally the cops called, because there's a lot of them at the airport. Yeah. They escort him out, and there's no arrests are made there. Okay. They just, he's lucky, I would say. Yeah. But it didn't work out well. Diamond Dallas Page says that, anything happens here. Anything can happen. Hall said, "Thank you to everyone for your support and concern regarding my recent relapse. I'm back on track and doing well." Diamond Dallas Page tweeted out, "I'm proud of his bounce back." That's all he tweeted.
Whatever that means.
It means buy my yoga.
Yeah.
November 6, 2016, he misses another appearance. He was set to appear with Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, and Sean Waltman at an indie show in LaSalle, Illinois, and apparently he didn't show up there. Yeah. He was a no-show. His son at this point, he's no-show for everybody. His son doesn't know where he is. He's missing for like months.
Really?
Just missing.
Oh,
we assume it's a relapse, and he goes under the radar to do this. It's posted that DDP posted posted on a thing that he was concerned about where Hall was. Yeah. Couldn't find him. Cody Hall, his son, said, quote, "No, I haven't heard from my dad." He tweeted this. Yeah. Last I heard, he was going to the UK 2 weeks ago. He always says how great it is. I assume he just stayed. And DDP says, "I haven't talked to Scott yet because I'm in the Dominican Republic at a DDP yoga workshop." But from what I have understand, he's okay.
Did he trademark that in the tweet?
No, unfortunately. He would have if he could have.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah. So, he says he gives Diamond Dallas Page all the, whatever in the world, all the credit in the world. He's not missing anymore as of December 2016, because he tweets a picture of his Christmas tree, and it says, "Just put my tree up, #HallGood." Mm-hmm. And in the picture, his television off to the side has porn playing on it, which is fucking hilarious. He deleted the post right after that, but I've seen the picture. It's fucking funny. It's very funny.
He put up a tree, he's tugging, and then he goes, I should show everybody that I got my tree up.
The best thing is, he's not even tugging to it. He just has it on. That's entertainment to him. He just has that on as a TV show. Like, hey, this is the thing that makes me feel like I'm most in an Orlando strip club. So this is good.
Or he's like, like you with The Wire, like he's watching every one.
Yeah.
Like the plots
Maybe
are connected.
That's what it is. He's trying to see. Yeah.
I want to see how this one ends. I'll tell you how it ends, Scotty. Turn it off.
Jesus Christ. He comes out against bullying in 2017.
Really?
Says, obviously I'm against bullying, but it does happen. The business has changed so much since I came in. When I came in, it wasn't a bunch of women wrestlers. There was maybe one or two women who came in a couple months a year. Now in the locker room, there's women. It's much more politically correct than it was when I started. So I think the bullying stuff, that's not tolerated anywhere. So it certainly can't be tolerated in the wrestling business. Then he begins to talk about ribs that people play on each other. And he says he hoped there would still be a good place for that. That sort of thing. He says, it's like when you find out a guy's room number, then you go down to the bar and buy drinks for everybody and you go, "Hey, just charge the drinks to my room," and you put his room number down. To me, that's funny. I might charge a bunch of drinks to your room, but I'm not going to steal your passport.
It's funny?
It's funny unless you do it to them and you pummel an unconscious man.
I know a guy's forehead who doesn't think it's so funny.
Yeah.
Also, there's no room for bullying. You called Kevin Nash a fag into a microphone.
Well, that's his friend, so you're allowed to call your friends names. But he did in front of a lot of people. June 2017, the fluff pieces are back, baby.
Oh, he's such a hypocrite.
Oh, yes, he is. Fluff pieces are huge as of 2017. DDP Yoga has a PR team from hell. Here's an article from Fox Sports titled, 58-year-old WWE legend Scott Hall is now in phenomenal shape.
Yeah.
And it's just, look at how great he is, DDP Yoga, the whole deal. We do get a decent quote out of this here. He says, quote, "I love the wrestling business, but my mom never named me Razor. That I did with the blessing of Vince McMahon, but at the end of the day, the wrestling business was always essentially about the money and the miles. My most important legacy is being a good father to my 2 children, which I have not done at all." He doesn't say that.
Can you read the beginning of that again?
Yeah, he says, "I love the wrestling business, but my mom never named me Razor."
No, she named you Oliver.
She named you Oliver, which Razor's a cool name.
It is.
Because that's one of the things that he came in. He came up with the Razor part, and then Tito Santana gave him the Ramon, because he's like, "I need a Spanish name that goes with Razor." And he said, Ramon. And he said, "Cool." So he used Razor Ramon, but that was like Razor Ruddock. Remember the boxer Razor Ruddock?
Yeah.
That sound, you know what Razor Ruddock's real first name is?
No.
Donovan.
No.
Does Donovan Ruddock sound like a tough man?
Terrible. Donnie?
Either you're Donovan Ruddock, which sounds like an English professor, or you're Razor Ruddock, which sounds like he'd cut you with a sharpened garbage can lid.
And they're in his boxing gloves.
Yeah. So August 1st, 2018, he is seen around the Performance Center, which is the WWE training facility here. He said he's glad to be back in the mix. He has been done the last year, I guess, 2 separate occasions. He's been around the young guys there. He says he's thrilled to be back in the WWE Performance Center with the young guns. He said, quote, "I'm so glad to be back. This is my 3rd time down here working with the young guys. Every time I come down, I'm attracted to the guys that are just starting," which sounds terrible. I'm just attracted to them. Their buttholes are nice and tight.
Did somebody say all the guys get to go to his room? Did anybody say that?
Let's hope not.
Nobody pulled that one?
Late August 2018, he's scheduled to do an anniversary show for some indie promotion. He has to withdraw for health reasons, so he has that kind of problem, but it's nothing too big. His son Cody has been in New Japan Wrestling for a couple years and is now in Pro Wrestling Noah over there, which is another Japanese promotion. He's doing pretty well. In the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 500 Wrestlers of 2018, he's number 317.
That's not bad.
So he's working, is what that means.
316 better.
Can't get enough of Scott Hall?
Yes.
You can follow him on Twitter. He is at Scott Hall NWO, where he tweets. He's tweeted 40,000 times.
My Lord.
He has 208,000 followers.
He's doing great.
He's doing great. 100. He's only following 1,030 people, so not too shabby. Also, you can go to ProWrestlingTees.com, where wrestlers kind of have all their own pages of T-shirts, and he's got one that's kind of funny if you're a Razor Ramon kind of fan. Here, it's a picture like a 70s band picture, like where it's black and white and they're all standing up against a brick wall. Yeah. Although it's 4 pictures of him like looking different, but all looking like he's in a punk band, and it says the Ramones, but not the Ramones. It's kind of fucking funny, actually. Yeah, he's got a couple, bad guy one and all sorts of shit like that. But that's Scott Hall.
Wow.
Continuing to this day. Stay tuned, because next week it could all change.
It could.
Just like Jake, we don't know.
You know.
Who knows? He's doing well now.
It could end in fucking terrible circumstances.
We have no idea. Or he could go on to be, I don't know, whatever. But he's not going to be president or anything.
72.
So, yeah, let's see what happens. So that would be good for him. Yeah. But either way, that is Scott Hall, and that is Crime in Sports for this week.
Wow.
Again, a famous person. It's sorry for the length, but it had to be lengthy. There's no other way to tell that story.
It's lengthy.
But lengthy.
It's like Ric Flair's dick in a jewel-studded
swinging.
cape.
Well, we never heard about the length. We just know it can swing. So there's that. If you
Mine doesn't swing.
I think you could get it to
I don't
propeller.
think I could.
Jesus. Damn, Jimmy. Is it cold in here or what? So
I'm really sorry. I didn't do it.
If you like that, you can do us a favor and tell us about it. Get on iTunes or wherever the hell you listen to podcasts and give us 5 stars. Just tell us you're following instructions, following directions. It's all you really need to do. It's not for our egos, honestly. Go over to shutupandgivememurder.com for all of your merchandise and all your information. Get tickets to upcoming Small Town Murder live shows February 25th or January 25th in Seattle and February 21st down there in West Palm Beach, the West Palm Beach Improv. Get those tickets today. All that good shit. Follow us from there on social media. You can do that very easily at Crime in Sports on Twitter, at Crime in Sports on Facebook, or at Small Town Murder on Instagram. Follow us all up there. If you want to be a goddamn hero, though, one of our special, wonderful, fantastical producers, you can do that very, very easily by going to patreon.com/crimeinsports or heading over to PayPal using our email address, which is crimeinsports@gmail.com, to make a one-time donation there. Every goddamn dime is so appreciated. Yeah. Thank you guys for everything like that. And Jimmy, I know we have a bunch of people who we need to talk about who have been so goddamn nice to us this week. Who are the people we're talking about? Jimmy, who the fuck are those people?
I'm going to hit you like you just ordered $300 of drinks to my room. This week's executive producers are Aaron Cox, Matt Ballou. You were wrong, by the way. I was still reading. He knows what that means. Ashley Johnson, Cat Power, Shannon Feltus, James Fraker, and Julia Avery. Thank you guys so much. We can't do it without you. This week's other producers happen to be Hunter Perry, Hannah Marmoro, Tracy Jacobs, Bill Szynski, Olivia Rafe, Joshua.
That's all of them. That's one of those, I'm sure.
It might be Reef. I could be way wrong.
That's everything.
Joshua Allness, Becky Stevens donated twice, both ways. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Cecilia Scheidler.
We'll take it both ways.
Jesus. Did she Eiffel Tower?
We'll take it from both ends. We don't give a shit. Eiffel Tower, high five yourself in the middle, and we'll take it. We don't care.
Roscoe Van Dam, Guy Rillo or Ryu? Rillo. I think it's Rillo.
Okay.
I think I just did it.
Yay.
I solved that riddle. Bernardo Ducalon, he donated Philippine money. I've never seen it. I don't know what it looks like. It was through PayPal, so it was all digital.
Thank you.
But thank
for
you
your
very
island
much.
money.
Bernardo, you're a good man.
Appreciate
Colleen Udovich, Brendan Abels, Amber Goodell, Natasha Fellows. Yes. Jesse Hartman, Ryan Shank, Heather Roberts, Lauren Demarath, Kyle Krasowski, Colby R with no, I think that's the R is the last name. I'm pretty sure.
Maybe, yeah.
Tyler, Tyler, I'm going to fuck this up. Delugency.
That sounds like a threat.
Yep.
I'm going to fuck this up, Tyler.
I'm going to fucking ruin.
Open up wide, Tyler. I'm fucking it up.
Law Office of Michael Stoll, who also sent us a fucking bidet.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I want to know the joke.
Yeah,
I want to know where the punchline is, because really the punchline right now is I'm washing my ass with your money, sir. That's what that is.
Because you shit a lot, I believe. That's what it is.
I hope that's what it is, because that's what I'm going to use it for.
I think it's just your pooping regimen, Jimmy. That's going to be my honest
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
William Vaughn, Carla Broman, Tess Fahey, Thomas Lofton, Russell Tobler, Becky Albertson, Alexander Jacobson. That one stumbles me because it's a K, not an X. It's
it's a tough one. Yeah.
I'm not that dumb. Yeah, that one. Michelle Terry Photography, Kevin Talkington, Mariella Rosas. Thank you very much. Jen Stevens, TJ McCullum, John Volkener the third.
Ooh.
That's a junior's junior. Philip Patrick Breton, Aaron Ishika. Fucking no. Ishik, SHIAEIK. That's all the vowels. How do you get to do that?
Aika?
Ishik?
Emily,
it's
not in front of me, so I have no idea.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Emily Downing, Rachel Stora, Gabrielle Elder. It's with a Y.
Yeah,
see what I'm doing? I'm doing my best to pronounce these.
I get it.
PB Corbin, Dave Allen, Marshall Walker donated twice. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Penny Coleman, Peachy Keen Meg, Bo Magnuson, William Weir, Skylar Henderson, Ted Cyrus. He's back in. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted.
Cherie Lynn. I believe that was Latrell Sprewell's cousin.
Oh,
Cherie.
hey, thank you, Cherie.
Matt Dietrich, Christina Jordan, Corey Kano, Tuboob Oobsloob. What?
Okay, they just wanted you to words they wanted you to say.
Yeah, there's an N after a B.
Yeah.
They're fucking with me for sure. Jordan Bennett donated twice, I think. She
Thank
did.
you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jordan.
And she sent the hockey pucks also.
Oh, that was so cool. Those are awesome. Thank you, Jordan.
No, that's a different Jordan.
Oh, shit.
No, it's the same one.
Okay. If it's you, thank you. If it's not you, how dare you pretend to be somebody else and take credit for their hockey pucks?
I think it's the same one. Dita Vasquez, Stephen Rude, Anita Marie, Under the Sea Fabrics, Tamsin Hunter, Thomas Smith, Alexis Seeger, Janice Hill, Zach Deficiani.
Oh,
that's a tough one.
Oh, yeah.
He got called defecate forever.
Yeah, for a long time.
For the whole, he still does.
Most of the time.
It's Justin Miller and Gigi, thank you guys so much. And then happy birthday, Ethan in Columbus.
That's not a hard word.
It looks like I wrote Columbine.
Oh, okay.
That is not Columbine. That's
confused.
Columbus, not Nebraska.
Jesus Christ. What a
How
mess.
fucking dumb am I? But that was from his girlfriend, Nikki. She sent 2 emails, and I think she didn't think I read it. You're wrong, Nikki.
Thank you, folks, so much. Indeed. Honestly, you guys are the best. We really appreciate every goddamn thing you do for us, because it's a lot. And thank you for everything. I know we won we were on some cool list in Australia.
Yeah.
That was neat. Thank you, Australia.
It was Crime Podcast of 2018 to get the year started for 2019.
Beautiful. Well, that was nice. Thank you for that. But thank you for everything. And what if these people wanted to thank you or not thank you? How could they do that?
You can find me at Whisman Sucks, WHISMAN Sucks on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. chat. Thank you guys so much for everything you send. It really, it makes the week go much smoother. What about you?
You can find me at Jimmie P is funny, or just copy and paste my last name from the show description. Don't be a hero. Don't try to spell it yourself because you will fail.
Yeah.
That said, guys, Jesus Christ, thank you guys so much. It's been an awesome start to the new year. We're cooking along on everything, and it's because of you guys.
Yeah.
We love you. Thank you so much. Live from the Crime and Sports Studios. We will see you next week.
Bye.
If you like Crime and Sports, you can listen early and ad-free now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.
He was hip-hop's biggest mogul, the man who redefined fame, fortune, and the music industry.
The first male rapper to be honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Sean Diddy Combs.
Diddy built an empire and lived a life most people only dream about.
Everybody know ain't no party like a Diddy party, so.
Yeah, that's what's up.
But just as quickly as his empire rose, it came crashing down.
Today I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution.
I was up. I hit rock bottom, but I made no excuses. I'm disgusted. I'm so sorry.
Until you're wearing an orange jumpsuit, it's not real. Now it's real.
From his meteoric rise to his shocking fall from grace, from law and crime, this is the rise and fall of Diddy. Listen to the rise and fall of Diddy exclusively with Wondery Plus